And I'm Guy. And this is your home for everything Alberta Independence, broadcasting live 6 days a week, twice a day, Monday through Friday at 12 noon and 5 p.m., once on Saturday at 5 p.m., which you're watching now. And we try to have an edited video or a pre-recorded video come out every Sunday.
Interview.
And
this upcoming tomorrow, actually, we're having Maxime Bernier, which was a very interesting conversation. Look forward for that. And we usually premiere them, so we will be probably in the chat tomorrow as it premieres, so we can all talk to each other more.
Well, what time are we planning to premiere it? I don't even know.
Around, it depends. It depends on when you want me to release it.
We'll try for 11:55.
Usually we do 11:55.
We'll try for 11:55.
So 11:55 tomorrow, the Maxime Bernier interview will premiere. But also, thank you so much for being here today and joining us today. Please do subscribe. It helps us out the most. Also, we try to read all your comments after each segment. And if we can't get to them, then we just rush over through them at the end of the stream. But we do prioritize super chats. It is really what helps us out the most. So if you feel so inclined, please send one and we will stop the whole show to read it and to interact with it and then continue on.
Why don't you read some comments? I'm going to get the spider on the wall over there.
Why did you tell me there's a spider? Should I go here?
Whatever you want.
Is it big? I'm more distracted by the spider. Sorry. Okay, I'll read your comments. Sorry. Gunner, hello. Thank you so much for being here. Says good afternoon to you both and all. Yes, good afternoon. Lyle says, I hope everybody is calm today. Wild Friday. And we got a spider over here.
I think the spider survived and I just knocked it on the ground. Now it's crawling around. I try to stomp everywhere though.
Why are you?
Okay, continue on. It's close to you, so maybe it'll bite you.
I don't think spiders. Spiders here don't bite.
Our dog got stung by a wasp on the mouth.
Yesterday. So we were on
dog watch.
Exactly. She just has a thing now on her lip. She's fine. Glenn Gunn also says, all good. We knew things would happen as we get going into the next phase. Hopefully we stick together. And I do think that is the most important message. And thank you, Glenn, for saying that as well. And yes, I think the more positive and focused on Alberta's independence itself as more people can be, the better. And the more effective it can be. There we go.
Well, I think we're going to go into a little bit of strategy and kind of what I might want to focus on and broaden out the Overton window, because some polling came out from Rebel News and it's actually a little bit concerning. Nat, come on, the spider's gone. Okay, let's keep going here.
James Halliday, hello, says, Alberta strong and free. Let's go, Alberta. And yes, exactly. Lyle Norman says, the YouTube guys are going to get together and figure their shift out. Stay positive. Yes, stay positive. And I hope, if so, they do.
Yeah.
Wild Rose Republic says, buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Thank you for being here. Or good afternoon. Glengun says, all good here in Cowtown. Wild Rose says, ein Volksgenossen, or something like that. I don't read German, but...
Oh, yeah, I was going to say,
sure.
It sounded German there.
But sure. Justin GP, hello, says, hi, Nat, Guy, and everyone else. And Robinson says, hi, Nat, guys, smash the like button. And yes, we always forget to say that. Thank you for reminding me, Robinson. We are trying to get to 100 likes per stream. It helps out the stream get and reach more and more people. So if you want to, and if you're liking the stream, please do hit the like button. And that's it.
Well, I will say we did do an interview today with somebody from the U.S., somebody that's America First, I guess. And man, I was like, you don't really watch him. I watch him here and there. So I was like, oh, I'll do the interview today. You might not know what to ask. And that was a mistake. She usually is the primary person conducting the interview. And then I chime in with questions or a little bit of discourse. And then she continues. It did not work out. And I was like, oh,
it was not that bad.
And I was like, maybe I don't need it so structured. We'll just have a discussion. And I didn't do well. He carried the interview quite well. So I didn't completely fall apart. But every time I'm asking a question, I'm getting halfway through my thought. And then I'm like, what the hell am I asking here? So Nat's definitely the better person for interviews, I think. And going forward, you'll be the primary and I'll chime in.
And thank you so much to him as well for interviewing with us. That interview should be coming out in about, now we're quite behind, so in about 2 weeks. But so wait for that one.
And we also might start releasing 3 interviews a week because enough people are starting to know who we are inside of Alberta. They're agreeing to interviews. Yes. So we might have enough for 3 a week.
Yeah, we have a heavy schedule, so that to look forward as well. But do you want to start with the first thing?
Yeah, let's go into the first thing. And we'll even put that before
breaking news.
Yes. I just wanted to discuss strategies going forward.
With all of you as well. So please do chime in and I will be reading your comments because it is really interesting what everybody else thinks too. Rebel News says, quote, exclusive, see our 3,000 person poll on Alberta independence. Our third party campaign group, Act for Alberta, just commissioned a massive public opinion poll on Alberta's independence referendum with a whopping 3,000 person sample size.
And a lot of people might say 3,000 people isn't a lot. In Alberta, it actually is. And I think it was a very fair survey. They're going to go into exactly how they done it. I trust Sheila Gunn Reid as well as Rebel News. I don't think they're going to try to rig a poll. The numbers are very concerning, but it might be a wake-up call for our campaigning to maybe get out of the bubble. I think in rural areas, we're doing absolutely fantastic. Edmonton and Calgary, we really need to start focusing on. And I think that's what this polling is showing.
But not just focusing on, but finding new strategies and actually looking at what would work best for each area. Because it's very easy to go out and campaign and tell people who already agree with you what they want to hear. But finding new strategies and new ways to approach the subject that might be way more effective than what I think as most people are used to already. But that's why we need everybody and the engaged citizenry to strategize together. Should I continue?
Continue on there.
Let me tell you what it says, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and I'll tell it to you straight. Here's the most striking finding. If the referendum were held today, it would fail. Only 35% of Albertans support independence and 56% oppose it. That's an uphill battle for sure, but it's not impossible. Quebec separatists started their 1995 campaign 20 points behind and nearly won. Britain's Remain side.
And I will say this, we have 35, they have 56. If this is to be believed, which I actually think it is, 35 is actually enough for separation. If we come out en masse, which we're highly motivated to do, the 56 might not be as motivated. That being said, when we go into the numbers, 51 of that 56% are highly opposed. And people that are highly opposed, not somewhat opposed, are more likely to come out to actually vote against. So there's something we need to do here. And I think we're very good at talking within the echo chamber with the echo chamber talking points, which motivates people to get ready and go out to vote. So we need to keep doing that. But we need to find, because it's a decentralized organization and there's a lot of small groups in here, some of the groups I actually don't like have some of the best talking points to talk to people inside of Calgary and inside of Edmonton. We'll talk about who those groups are and how I think they can be effective. Let's keep going. Yeah.
Okay. Britain's Remain side led almost the entire Brexit campaign, but on referendum day, Brits voted to leave. 6 months is a lifetime for a political campaign, so why is overall support for an independence vote so weak? I think one of the reasons is that good people have legitimate questions like, what about the Canada Pension Plan? What about freedom to travel to other parts of Canada? Those questions haven't yet been answered. The objections haven't been overcome, but they could be. Another problem is the pro-Ottawa side has a lot of high-powered communications on the payroll. The CBC, the NDP, and most of the political establishment. People like Thomas Okazuk, Jason Kenney, and Naheed Nenshi. They're lifelong politicians. But who was at the yes side of the campaign? Grassroots volunteer organizers who have done a great job getting petitions signed, but they haven't crafted a message that reaches beyond the rural conservative political base of the province. They're normal, busy people, not professional pundits, and the media has managed to demonize independence voters as extremists, a typical leftist tactic.
Well, and I will say something else here. After reading this, and we'll watch the clip in a moment, and we'll watch the thing in full, because I think this needs to be a wake-up call going from campaigning and canvassing. The 7,000 people that did the canvassing did absolutely fantastic. Yes. You got us where we need to go, but now we need to get into messaging and reaching out to people outside of our base and outside of rural areas. We need to craft a strategy as a whole, and that's why we're talking about it live on the air. So hopefully you guys have ideas too. Some of the groups we have to reach to, and it doesn't mean that we compromise our first principles or anything like that. Yeah. There are different elements within the group that can talk to certain demographics. Some of the demographics we're not reaching out to, and it's very obvious to see. Calgary, Edmonton, it's the same thing in British Columbia with a lot of Liberal voters, NDP voters in Vancouver and Victoria. So we need to reach out to those two cities, women, immigrants, older NDP voters, as well as national conservatives that have already left the country, and we want to appeal to maybe move back as well. We'll go into that and a strategy that I think we can use going forward, and the best arguments that I think work inside of Calgary and Edmonton. These are not strategies for rural Alberta. I think we have rural Alberta at a lock right now.
And also being able to bring up these points that the way that the messaging has been and continues to be might not reach those people in Edmonton and Calgary, and the message that they want to hear might be different. Again, not bending to their political whims, which are insane, most of them, but being able to answer the questions in a very straightforward manner and bringing these things up also during live events that unfortunately right now we can't get to, but like the Let's Talk Alberta and all the other ones we continue to see. And we're very glad that so many people are getting together and talking to each other in person. But I think maybe some of these specific points and these specific ways of reaching out are getting lost inside of a bubble.
Well, I'll say something else. I watch a lot of the live events, and thank you to Freedom Calendar for broadcasting those. Great audio, great video, so I can kind of watch and get a sense of what's going on the ground. And a lot of people that are coming to these live events, a lot of these live events are in rural areas, and it's a lot of people that agree or slightly on the fence, but already leaning towards independence. Yeah. Once we go into Calgary and Edmonton, and 99% of the room are against it, we have to have people that can stay cool, calm, collective, answer questions politely, but know the talking points and the arguments that work for those individuals, but are honest. Somebody that is extremely on the side of independence and has a very narrow version of what they want for independence maybe isn't the person you want to send into Calgary and Edmonton. We want somebody that can change their minds and give arguments that appeal to those people. And
I'm sure there are people out there, and maybe in some of the other organizations, because again, we're just citizens talking and giving our opinion. But I'm sure some of those groups have already maybe discussed this, but haven't let the majority of the rest of the public know because they're strategizing. So it's just the way we're seeing it at this moment. Continuing. The challenge is to persuade another 15 or 20% of people to support independence, and our new poll suggests that means different messages and probably different messengers too. Here's an example from our poll. Only 35% of Albertans say they support independence, but 50% of Albertans believe the province is being treated unfairly by Ottawa. They know the system is rigged. And the more specific you get, the more Albertans are willing to speak out. Take the Trudeau-Carney policy of mass third world immigration. Half of Albertans agree that Ottawa is out of control. Do you see what I mean? If you talk about independence in abstraction, you'll win over a third of the voters. But when you remind people of all the terrible things the system has done to Albertans, all of a sudden you remind Albertans of how unfair the system is. The referendum is nominally about independence, that's true, but it's also the biggest, loudest way to hit back at Ottawa in a way they'll never forget.
Well, also what this Rebel News polling is showing, and I think they're going to do more of this polling, and again, Sheila Gunn-Reid was involved in this. I do trust these statistics. This actually mirrors what the national polling was, which was surprising because I didn't think that was honest polling. Now that we have somebody that we trust where it's fairly similar. The national polls were saying 30. This is saying 35%. And when you look into the way they actually did the polling, it was rural, it was city, it was a little bit of everything. I thought they did a fantastic job here. So we need to peel about 10% off from the other side to get to about 45%. I think with 45%, that puts us probably 55% of the total vote on the day of the actual referendum. Mm-hmm. We don't need 60% to get 60%. We only need about 45% to get 55 or 60% of the vote the day of, because a lot of people do stay home and our side is much more motivated to come out to the polling.
True. You want me to keep reading?
No, let's go into the actual clip now and we'll show some respect here because, yeah, I know it's long, but I think we need to start really focusing on what we're going to do to peel votes from the other side and what the strategy is overall. If we keep giving the same talking points over and over and talking to the same group of people, we're never going to get that extra 10%, which we need to secure a guaranteed independent future for Alberta.
As you know, for a variety of good reasons, we've set up a third-party campaign group in Alberta. Now, it's not a political party. It's just called a third party. It's more like a super PAC, as they would say in the States. It allows us to get involved in the petition gathering phase and the campaigning phase of the referendum on Alberta independence. It's expected to take place on October 19th, less than 6 months from now. We're carefully following the law. The super PAC that we're calling Act for Alberta is following all the rules. Our chief reporter, Sheila Gunn-Reid, is the contact person for it, and we have a financial agent and a special bank account. We're doing weekly filings with Elections Alberta, so we're being very compliant. Anyways, one of the first things we did with the super PAC was commission a poll, a whopping 3,000 person sample size. In a province like Alberta, that's a really rigorous poll. And we asked all kinds of questions for what pollsters call crosstabs. That's where you compare various characteristics. For example, we could compare.
And I'm really, really glad Rebel News did this. This can be a wake-up call, and we know strategically exactly where we need to go, what we need to do, what arguments. The other polling we can do is what arguments are going to work on the demographic that we are missing now.
Support for independence with sex, with age, with income, with region of Alberta. And then we tested a few other ideas like immigration or pipelines or crime. I'll explain why in a moment. Let me start with the most striking news from the poll. If the referendum were held today, it would fail. The question, do you support or oppose the idea of an independent Alberta separate from Canada? As you can see on page 21 of the poll, 26.5% strongly support that, and 8.7% somewhat support that. So that's the for, but look at the opposition.
And pause it here.
Double.
And if this was split into somewhat oppose and strongly oppose, it would fare a lot better for us. But because 53% of the people that oppose this strongly oppose it, they're very likely to come out the day of the voting. So we really have some work to do in front of us. And this is why it's so good. We have 6 months, and I'm sure Rebel News is going to continue to do polling. So we'll have updates as we kind of go. Hopefully they continue to poll the same people as well. And then they have other polls where they poll new people. That way we can see if we're actually shifting some of the minds with the opposed strongly.
53.3% strongly oppose it. And actually only 2.3% somewhat oppose it. If you're against it, you're very against it. Now on page 22, there's some variation, as you can see in some of these crosstabs. Young men are much more likely to support it. Also high school or people in the trades versus university. That would be 43.4% for high school education versus basically 19.8%, half as much for university grads. On page 23, you can see the real divide in Alberta. Rural support is 53.5%. I'm combining the strong support and the somewhat support. Compare that to Calgary and Edmonton in the mid-20s, about half as much.
And pause it there.
So
I was actually surprised on that too. I know we have a strong rural turnout. I actually thought it was stronger than that. I thought it was at 60 to 65, maybe even 70%. So the fact that we're only getting 50% rurally, we need to continue what we've organized on the ground rurally. We got a good ground game rurally. A lot of the stuff we need to do in Calgary and Edmonton is a completely different strategy. And a lot of the people we have working rurally, I don't think would work as good in Edmonton and Calgary. It may actually push voters away from us. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
And we're held today to decide on separation. 60.1% of Albertans would vote remain. 28.1% would vote to leave. So even some people who earlier said they want independence, when they're asked how they would vote in the referendum, they won't vote for it. I don't know, out of fear or lack of readiness. But why? Well, my hunch is I don't think independence has been properly explained. I don't think the objections that people would have been overcome. People ask legitimate questions like, what happens to my Canada pension plan? What about the borders? Can we still travel to BC and Saskatchewan as we normally do? How about the airports? How about the postage stamps? How about the currency? These are all legitimate questions, and all of them have legitimate answers, but I just don't think people have been educated about it yet, as opposed to, say, Quebec, which has been talking details like this for 50 years. Everyone knows how Quebec would go.
And pause it.
And
I think Alberta, and I talk about it quite frequently, is much better set up than Quebec, but Quebec has been doing this ground game, and there's this sediment with under the surface that has built up over the last 20, 30, even more years than that. It's going to be interesting what we need to do. We're going to go into comments directly after this, and then I'll talk about what I think my strategy for Calgary and Edmonton specifically. Calgary and Edmonton are very densely compact. There are a lot of votes in those areas. It's what will make or break this vote. We don't have to win everybody within that city, but we need to peel another 10 to 20% off within each of those locations.
Well, here, who have the messengers been in the independence campaign so far? If you've been following on the last 6 months, who have been the advocates? We know who the advocates are for the Remain side. Former Premier Jason Kenney, former Cabinet Minister Thomas Lukaszuk, the NDP leader there, Naheed Nenshi. They've been the Remain voices. Who have the Leave messengers been? Well, I like Jeffrey Rath. He's been on our show before, but he is a cowboy straight out of Central Casting. I think he'd admit that maybe he's not the best ambassador to other demographics like soccer moms. And to be very candid, and I like Jeff, but going down to the States repeatedly to meet with the Trump administration and then blabbing about that to the whole world, but keeping the details of the conversation secret, that's again something that the Mark Carney war room could only dream up. That's just...
And again, I like Jeff Rath as well. He's actually very crucial when we go to rural areas and things like that. And sometimes that's the guy you want to speak to the media because he can put them on their back foot and run circles around them. Yeah. But somebody like Keith Wilson is primed for the city. He's cool, calm, level-headed. If he gets asked a question, he's going to ask it in a very legal-minded way. There are a couple other organizations that I think are primed for those two locations in Calgary and Edmonton. We'll talk about it in a bit.
Not going to convince soccer moms that this is a good idea. So I think we've been looking at the results of 6 months of messaging and a messenger that were pretty scary to people. And I don't even think that's what this referendum is about. Here, let me give you a hint about what it's about. This is my point of view based on our poll. But let me quote a leftist named Michael Moore. He's that commie who made a bunch of documentaries in the 1990s against General Motors, against firearms. He's a bit of a wackadoodle documentary maker. He's been at it for about 30 years. But listen to him. This was 10 years ago, talking to Democrats in Ohio, why he thought Donald Trump was about to win. He was one of the only lefties that got it. He understood what voting for Trump actually meant. Take a listen. Take a couple of minutes here. And while you're listening to him talk about Trump, think about Canada from the point of view of Alberta or Saskatchewan or any of the regions that you can't see from the CN Tower in Toronto. Take a look.
Whether Trump means it or not is kind of irrelevant because he's saying the things to people who are hurting. And it's why every beaten down, nameless, forgotten working stiff who used to be part of what was called the middle class loves Trump. He is the human Molotov cocktail that they've been waiting for. The human hand grenade that they can legally throw into the system that stole their lives from them. And on November 8th, Election Day, although they lost their jobs, although they've been foreclosed on by the bank, next came the divorce, and now the wife and kids are gone. The car's been repoed. They haven't had a real vacation in years. They're stuck with the shitty Obamacare bronze plan where you can't even get a fucking Percocet. They've essentially lost everything they had except one thing. The one thing that doesn't cost them a cent and is guaranteed to them by the American Constitution, the right to vote. They might be penniless, they might be homeless, they might be fucked over and fucked up. It doesn't matter because it's equalized on that day. A millionaire has the same number of votes as the person without a job, one. And there's more of the former middle class than there are in the millionaire class. So on November 8th, the dispossessed will walk into the voting booth, be handed a ballot, close the curtain, and take that lever, or felt pen or touchscreen, and put a big fucking X in the box by the name of the man who has threatened to upend and overturn the very system.
And Michael Moore has said a lot of stupid things since then. I don't agree with him on much, but I do agree with him on this particular little speech here. And there are a lot of disinfected people in Calgary and Edmonton that maybe aren't traditional conservatives that will vote for independence if we can give them the right message, the right hope for the future. Why do I know leftists will vote for independence and people that are NDP, older NDP voters and the former working class union base and that type of voter? Why do I know they will vote for independence? Because in Quebec, those very same people, Quebec is very left leaning and they're willing to vote for independence in Quebec. There's no reason we can't appeal to that same voter base. We just need to send the right people with the right message to appeal to that voter base. We don't have a secure structure and a secure vision of what we want for Alberta in the future. And maybe that is the benefit of going into Calgary and Edmonton. Certain groups within the movement that I disagree with, that I don't like their messaging, are actually the people that can appeal to the people in Calgary and Edmonton and give us that 10 or 20% of those cities that we need so we can go forward with independence. We need a wake-up call right now. I've been guilty of it. This channel in the past maybe has been a little bit of an echo chamber. I thought we were much more ahead in the polls than we actually were. Let's continue with this. By the way, if you're not subscribed to Rebel News, obviously do so. Everybody knows who they are. They did us a huge favor by doing these polls and giving us the wake-up call we need now at the beginning of the campaign season. at this point, the mainstream media hasn't come with their all-out attacks yet. I know we complain about it. I'm expecting far worse than this. And if this is where the polling is now, we have some serious work to do.
That has ruined their lives. Donald J. Trump.
Now, Trump has governed better than Michael Moore predicted, but I think half the reason people support Trump, even today, is just to send a message to the establishment the only way they could. Well, hello. So look at page 26 of the poll. Do you think the way Alberta is treated by the federal government in Ottawa is fair? 49.7% say it's unfair, which is a lot higher than the number who say they want independence or vote for a referendum. Hey, what's the number one issue in Canada today? Well, it's obviously immigration. Look at page 35 of the poll. Nearly 49% of Albertans agree that Alberta needs to take control of immigration away from the fools in Ottawa. Same thing with the extremely woke, weird, lenient criminal justice system. On page 38, more than 40% of Albertans want to take over the criminal justice system and get out of the hands of these liberal judges. You see my point? You see what I'm getting at? If the message of this referendum campaign is, let's build a utopian country, well, you're going to have people with questions. I'd have questions. People will take the devil they know rather than vague answers and a touch of secrecy, which is what they faced so far. And what they faced so far plays to the fears of the 51st.
And we have to remember, like, I do a show twice a day about Alberta independence to really get messaging out there. I do a ton of interviews as well. I'm knowledgeable about a lot of this stuff, but a lot of people are not politically active, and they see somebody like Danielle Smith fixing small issues, and they're like, well, she's fixing it. We don't need to vote for independence. We got to make sure that they know, even if Danielle Smith is making small corrections and trying to build a safety net, Mark Carney is taking giant leaps forward to undo all that in a long-term strategy of the country. So no matter what Smith does, Carney is going to untangle all that, take sovereignty away from provinces, and it's not going to be the country that they think it's going to be in 5 or even 10 years. We have to get that messaging out. We have to get it out to places and cities. This is one of the reasons why somebody like Igor is so important. He does talk to immigrant communities and things like that. He built his whole channel, which is about 150,000 subscribers, on his journey to Canada. The majority of his subscriber base are immigrants. They are watching his channel and listening to it. So we really need to utilize him to talk to that community, because that was one of the communities that I singled out that we need to do better with.
State.
And pause it. When I say immigrants, I'm talking about immigrants with citizenship that can vote, because that can make the difference. Donald Trump made big inroads with minority communities and immigrant communities that were recently citizens in the U.S. in the last 2 elections. We can do the same here in Alberta.
But if you say, this referendum is the first opportunity you've had to fight back against Ottawa in your lifetime. It's what Quebec got to do twice, by the way, and it helped them win either way. It's win-win. If Quebec would vote to go, they'd have their own country. But even if it would be close, they could still boss around Ottawa pretty good and get everything they want. Don't you think? I mean, if Alberta does secede, I think it would be amazing. I think that the few technical issues could be ironed out quickly, and it would soon be the Monaco of North America. It would be so wealthy, unhooked from Justin Trudeau and Mark Carney and the rest of them. Imagine a life without them and just Alberta being Albertan. But even if the referendum only gets, say, 35, 45, even 49% of the vote, well, it's a message to Ottawa that they cannot ignore. That's the way. That's the ballot question. That's the way to campaign. Whenever Mark Carney raises your taxes, whenever Mark Carney shuts down your oil jobs, lies to you about pipelines and tankers and an MOU, whenever he opens up the floodgates of mass immigration or issues an insane court ruling or permits Islamic terrorists into our country, this is your way to hit back. It's your only way, a peaceful, legal way that our cousins in Quebec get to use. And damn it, we can use them too. On October 19th, send those bastards a message they'll never forget. That's your campaign message. And if you look at the poll, it just might win.
Yeah, and I think this was a huge wake-up call from Rebel News. I like that report they did. We're really blessed to have them invest that money to do that poll now rather than later. We're really just now entering the campaign season. So let's get some of the questions, and then I'm going to go over some of the strategies that I think may work in Calgary and Edmonton, and some of the best players within Alberta independence that I'm actually have been opposed to at this point. I haven't liked their ideas. I've openly, quit shaking your teeth, Nat. I've openly kind of said I don't like their ideas, and kind of try to push them away. Maybe we need to be bringing them closer and sending them directly to Calgary and Edmonton, because even though I don't like their message, and I think a lot of the base in the rural areas don't like their message, I think it's the perfect message for Calgary and Edmonton to peel off the votes we need for independence.
And that's kind of the main point I wanted to talk about, that it is a lot easier and a lot more comfortable to be able to say, no, we want it to be exactly this way and concentrate on exactly these issues with the people that are already going to say yes. But that is not a good strategy if you actually want to win.
It actually is a good strategy. We could be very discriminating on what we want for the vision going forward. The vision we want going forward in Alberta, and say, this is it. This is what we want. If we had a critical mass of voters, we wouldn't have to pay heed to some different ideas that are within the Alberta independence movement, but we don't have a critical mass of voters. We can see that now. I thought we did. So I was a lot more narrow-minded on what I thought the messaging needed to be. Obviously, we need to expand the Overton window. We need to raise the voices that maybe I disagree with, not in rural areas, but to send them into Calgary and Edmonton. Sorry to interrupt you.
And it's also very easy to say, oh, well, they only poll 3,000 people. Oh, well, it's Rebel News, let's ignore them, and get angry at the fact that these findings were shown. But you can be a lot more proactive and a lot more useful by actually listening and saying, okay, maybe the messaging has been wrong. Maybe we have been concentrating too much on the things that we already know and we already want, and we have just completely focused on. But it is important as campaigning starts to start looking at these other perspective and at these other avenues that could get you more votes. In the end, what you want is more votes, not to isolate everybody else that doesn't think or want exactly the same things as you, is to get the most votes possible on October 19th.
And I don't want it to sound or say the strategy is to liberalize or compromise any of the first values. We have a decentralized movement with no leadership or no direct vision. So some of these groups that have their own little vision, if you send them into Calgary and them into Edmonton, they're being truthful and honest with the vision that they want. I think there's a critical mass of people that don't want that. And if we do get independence, they're not going to have a real shot at inserting that vision into the actual Constitution and things like that. And another thing, we haven't chose the wrong strategy, because we've done really good just to get that 35%. It's a strong 35%. That 35% on the polling day may turn into 51% if the other side doesn't come out. So we need to keep using the voices we have in the rural areas. We still have work to do in the rural areas. Only 53% of rural people called and asked said they would vote for independence. I want that to be up at 70 or even 80%. And we have that part of the movement kind of secured out. We just need to keep chugging along. It's Calgary and Edmonton, and the people that we're currently pushing away that actually want independence, but want it in a different way, that would be perfect to talk to those two cities.
Like right now, you just want to be able to convince those people that might be on the fence or even on the no side towards a yes, or towards at least staying at home or thinking that it's not, that it's important to voice their opinion, let's just say. But if you continue, as you say, to push away or to only be very narrow-minded as to what you want or what you think the movement should be, in the end, when you want the most votes, it's not going to help you out.
Yeah. Okay, let's read some comments, and then I'm going to go into some strategies that I think will work for specifically Calgary and Edmonton. I'm not suggesting this is what I want for the vision of the country. What I'm suggesting is we need to have a special strategy specifically for Calgary and Edmonton in order to make this thing happen.
Exactly. And unfortunately, I can't start reading the messages and bringing them up because there's so many, and thank you so much. So I'm just going to start reading, and then I'll bring them up as soon as I catch up.
And we may not be able to read all the messages today, but we're going to try to read a lot of them, and we're going to really be interacting with them, especially the ones that are giving campaign strategies. And
I think this is the most important bit of the show.
This is not just the most important bit of today's show. We need to get our shit together when it comes to campaigning. I thought we had it together, and I thought we were in a much better position. We have work to do, and it starts today.
And it's easy, it's better to just admit it and move forward with that information than getting angry and resisting the information that is out there. Lyle Norman says, I'm still sharing the show every time you put them out. Thank you so much. And Republic of Alberta says surveys and polls mean nothing. All that matters is how many eligible voters signed the petition. In central Alberta, it's 80 to 93% in respective ridings. Half of the people living in Alberta are not even eligible to vote.
Yeah, in respective ridings, but overall, like the polls that have been coming out, I haven't been trusting them. And I've said polls don't matter. But when Rebel News comes out with a polls like this and shows the actual data and asks sub questions as well to sub demographics, this is something we need to pay attention to. If we ignore somebody like Sheila Gunn Reid and Rebel News that I think can be trusted in their polling, and it's actually reflecting similar results to what the national polling is having, it's maybe I underestimated a lot of things and maybe I was wrong. And maybe if we want Alberta independence, we have to admit some hard truths here. And that is we have some work to do right now. And the easiest way to do that work is in Calgary and Edmonton. That is where the vote is lacking. You're right. Some of the ridings are 92%, but there's very few people in those ridings. And we're looking for overall votes.
Yes. Hold on. Salmon Perspective says, yes, we still have to continue to grow the yes side no matter what. That is true. And I think that is the most important perspective, to grow the yes side and then to grow it for the vote itself, then figure out everything else. Well, not everything else, but then continued with the actual morals, principles, and values that you want to instill within Alberta. But right now, to be able to do so, you need more and more people on the yes side. And admitting it doesn't mean you're admitting that it's everything is lost, there's no hope. It should be giving more and more people hope that there's so many more potential yes votes out there that haven't even been really talked to or that haven't even been convinced yet, is my point.
Well, and I've also heard a lot of people in the decentralized movement say, we're not going to convince liberals, we're not going to convince NDP, we don't need them. Well, we can convince those people because Quebec has convince that exact demographic. We're going to have to use different arguments and different people within the grassroots movement to appeal to those people. It's a different strategy. Right now, we kind of have one strategy and everybody's using different talking points, but very similar. We're going to need the people that I actually don't necessarily like in the movement to appeal to Calgary and Edmonton.
Yeah. Harmony says, I was watching what was happening in Mirror, Alberta, and wrote your name in chat and told them about you.
Thank you.
Glengun says, look at Brexit, same thing here. Republic of Alberta says, I would take Ezra's survey with a grain of salt. Ontario does not want to get stuck paying for Quebec and the Maritimes.
Yeah, I'm not going to necessarily take it with a grain of salt. I think Rebel News has a lot to gain from Alberta actually getting its independence. They've been a major target of the Liberal government with mass censorship coming in. They have to be the top news or media organization on that list to kind of get rid of or censor or put prosecute under hate speech laws or censorship laws. I believe if Alberta gets its independence, Rebel News will move its headquarters to Alberta to have the protections Alberta can offer independent media in a new nation.
Exactly. And hold on.
And also, one of the big people working with Rebel News for these polling and other things is Sheila Gunn Reid. And I think she's a real voice within Alberta independence.
And also has a vested interest in wanting to see an independent Alberta. Escape from Canada says, hello from sunny Puerto Vallarta. Hello, and hope you're having fun there. Republic of Alberta says, Ezra Levant is a federalist and is headquartered in Toronto. But forget about Ezra Levant. Forget about Rebel News. Take the information that has been given to you and use it. It doesn't matter kind of where it's coming from. I mean, you could even see and say the same thing about the nationalist polls. But if you take this information in the positive way and say, okay, what else can we do? What new tactics can we use? What haven't we explored? You're reacting proactively to the information you're being given, not just crossing your hands and saying, well, I don't want to do that.
We can plug our eyes and ears and pretend we're winning. And we can, let's just pretend Ezra Levant's completely wrong and he is a federalist. I don't think that's the case, but let's just say it is for a minute. So we just keep doing the things we're doing. Then the October 19th ballot comes around and we happen to lose. Well, even if Ezra Levant's a federalist, but we actually take in what he's saying, that means we have to work harder on the areas that we're not appealing to. It only benefits us to go after voters in Calgary and Edmonton. These are huge swaths of voters that are densely compact in an area. We don't need 80 or 90% of them. We need 10 to 20% of those voters in those two cities to push this over the edge, way over the edge, so we can win with a 55 or 60% total digital vote.
And even though it might seem there's no real ways to convince those kinds of people, I mean, and even thinking like the purple-haired, insane people, there might be an actual way to convince them. The avenue just hasn't been explored, and there's very different ways to get at them, and with very different kinds of voices and people. We just have to start coalescing and finding them to be able to send out that different message of independence that could get to even the insane ones,
Yeah.
and the sane ones too, but the ones that are against independence right now and that have been only the only propaganda they've gotten comes from the federal government and the CBC, CTV News, etc. They haven't even been reached by the other side yet.
People are angry with the federal government. If we can pitch them in the right way, they're going to want to hand it to the federal government on October 19th. I think one of the good pitches that I didn't like for me, and it didn't appeal to me, and I don't use it because I want pure independence, really is for those people that are on the fence that we want to vote for independence so we can go into negotiations and get a better deal for Alberta. It's not something that I want, but the people in Calgary and Edmonton that are on the fence, I guarantee you it will appeal to those people. And we need to start finding the people within the movement that actually believe those points of views and can pitch it honestly and authentically to Calgary and Edmonton.
And right now, again, you just want more yes votes at this point and at this moment in time. Glenn Gunn says, Sheila Gunn Reid is Albertan. We can trust her voice at
Yes,
Rebel.
absolutely. And that's why, and Rebel has come out firmly on the side of Alberta independence, and Sheila Gunn Reid and Tamara Lich work within that. If there's something dishonest going on in there when it comes to Alberta independence, maybe not other things, maybe not other stories, maybe they're not the way they're raising money or something like that. But when it comes to Alberta independence, Sheila Gunn Reid is not going to F around, and she's going to make sure she does everything. So we do get Alberta independence on October 19th.
Lal Norman says, yes, Sheila is great. Concur. Republic of Alberta says Sheila knows almost everyone in central Alberta is on board. She lives there. Yes, but everybody else might not be. Harmony says, I agree with you, and he seems to desire the city of London. In fact, believe he said this, one of the money centers of the world. Again, don't focus too much on who's giving you the information. Use the information you're being given to be proactive and get more yes votes and actually get independence. Getting stuck in the minutia of who said this and what and where it's coming from. If it's information that you can at least kind of trust and it's telling you we could be able to do more, then do more. Stop focusing on the minutia and the tiny little details that aren't convenient to you at this point.
There's a lot more we can be doing, and because we were in canvassing season and getting signatures, that's far different. And I think we got that canvassing and signature mentality that would just put your head down and work as hard as we can to get those signatures into campaigning. Campaigning's much different. We have to reach a lot of different people that need different arguments in order to convince them, whether it's
Exactly. Republic of Alberta says 3,000 people out of 2.5 million. Again, it's just a data point. And yes, I mean, the surveys that the federal government is doing is 1,000 people. They were less than 1,000 people. They polled 300 the other day and decided to bring that out as this big giant poll.
Yeah, but you can look at the mechanics of what Rebel News did here. A 3,000 person poll for 5 million, if it's conducted right, actually does work, and it gives you an actual insight. There's a pollster I watch in the United States. He's actually one of the good independent pollsters, and he's been bang on. The reason people don't trust polls anymore because they have been corrupted. I looked into this poll and I know how polls work. I think this is something we can take to heart, and we should take actionable action on by having new strategies going into campaign season.
It's only giving you more of an advantage to accept that some people might have not been reached with the current messaging. But hold on. JP Alberta first, thank you so much for the $50 super chat. Wow.
Thank you. Really, thank you a lot.
Yes. Saying strategy needs to evolve into a federal style campaign. The facts must stay the same. Vision must stay the same. Change the focus depending on the different parts of Alberta. North is different from central Edmonton, is different from Calgary, etc. And again, yes, those foundational moral values, principles, and the way the direction of an independent Alberta should go. Yes, but you can always, I'm sure if you bring up healthcare more within Calgary and Edmonton and ask them if they're really receiving the type of healthcare that they thought they would be within Canada, that could be a really good talking point that might not fully work with the people that have already accepted that the healthcare system is completely broken. That's the kind of thing I guess we're talking about, or at least I'm talking about.
Well, and maybe I'll talk about some people that we've kind of pushed away and out of Alberta independence because a lot of people didn't like their vision, and they say, no, there's a different different vision. I understand, and I actually agree with a lot of the vision, a lot of the decentralized leadership has for Alberta. Yeah. So when I name these names, it's not that I'm agreeing with them. What I'm saying is their messaging and their vision for Alberta independence will work in Edmonton and Calgary because of the demographics. One of the people that was kind of pushed out, he's a little bit more accepted and people will listen to him, but I don't think broadly his vision of what he wants for Alberta will be adopted by most Albertans, but in Calgary and Edmonton it will, and that's Bruce Party. He appeals to libertarians within these cities, and there are thousands of libertarians within Calgary and Edmonton specifically. So to allow him to raise his voice in those two cities would be a good idea to peel votes off in those cities. Mm-hmm. Also, I would say we did interview Maxime Bernier. It's coming out tomorrow, the interview. Yeah. We got a bit of a reaction back from that. And I understand a lot of people don't like Maxime Bernier or the PPC in Alberta, but there has to be thousands of voters for the PPC within especially Calgary and Edmonton. Mm-hmm. So if Maxime Bernier's supporting independence, his followers are going to come out and vote on October 19th. Yeah. Let's not shut down his voice because if we shut down his voice and push the PPC away, maybe they vote the other way. We don't have to endorse him. We don't have to bring him in and amplify him at all. He's already endorsing independence, and his voters are going to vote for independence on October 19th. So we don't need to talk shit on him. We don't need to build him up any more than he already is. Just allow him to say he supports independence, so his voters and the PPC voters, even if there's only a few thousand within Calgary and Edmonton, they will come out, and we do need that demographic. So exactly. Just don't push people away when they are helping us. Mm-hmm.
Glengon says, remember, Alberta has so many newcomers. The Freedom Voice needs to reach them. That too. Republic of Alberta says, how was the survey conducted and where? Again, getting into the minutia, but go.
Well, I think it was conducted honestly. It was conducted rurally and within the cities. It was conducted between multiple demographics. Rebel News was showing their work there as well. And they polled men, women, young people, old people, and they kept the statistics for each group separately as well. So you can see where we need to do the work. It was honest polling. It's not like a polling coming out from mainstream media saying 30% and not showing any of the work, any of the demographics or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So
Glenn Gunn says, you really think Sheila works like an employee? No chance.
Yeah, exactly. And thank you to everything Sheila Gunn Reid is doing with Inside Alberta Independence. Yes.
And an acceptable fringe. Hello. And thank you so much to you for everything you've been doing for Alberta Independence as well, and being one of those initial voices and really strong voices too. But says, I'm curious where Ezra polled. However, I'm working with other influencers to get to cities for Change My Mind style talks over the summer. And I think that's another great strategy that could be used, and using the Socratic method and talking to people and really listening to their concerns and being able to maybe talk to them in a language that they understand. And again, that language will be very different from one place to another, from one person to another even.
Well, I'm sure Rebel News, I mean, the Fringe is much bigger than we are. I mean, we're probably the smallest channel in Alberta Independence, and we're trying to strategize the best we can. I'm willing to listen to, this is why I'm trying to have an open discussion here. So what are the best strategies going forward for campaigning? Rebel News is going to be more than willing to share this information with us. Sheila Gunn Reid is as well. So that was a great suggestion by the Fringe saying we need to go to these cities, but what cities do we need to go to? And if we can get Rebel News to do more polling in different cities so we know exactly what cities we need to go to and what people we need to appeal to come into in-person meetings, so we can try to talk to those people, I think is very important. We can go to cities where it's an echo chamber. They already agree with us. That's not going to help shift voters on October 19th. Yeah. We need to go maybe into cities that we're not as welcome and talk to demographics that aren't going to be as open to us, and we need to figure out ways to appeal to them and shift that vote.
Or have different people that can appeal to them, speak to them directly as well.
And I'm glad to see content creators hopefully are coming together with a secure message. We are entering campaign season. This is different than canvassing season. A lot of weight's going to be put on the content creators and the social influencers, because that's how we're going to do a lot of the campaigning. A lot of it's done on the ground, but again, it should be supported by that online voice. And the Fringe is the biggest voice in Alberta Independence. Even outside of Alberta Independence, he is probably the number one broadcaster for news with inside of Alberta.
Yeah. So
He
thank you
could
for
be
being
he is a major key factor in swinging this towards independence on October 19th.
Yes. Lena Dog, hello, says, hit the like button, people. Yes, and thank you so much. Unacceptable Fringe again says, we all need to get everyone, influencers, organizations, act under one roof and get on script if we want to win this. No egos. And I fully agree with that. And that's what I've been saying for everything, actually. And I've seen other movements, campaigns around the world completely crumble because of this and because of not getting together and not strategizing together and rather continuing to say, no, not this person, not that person. And I also do think it is important to not just get the people that are already on the side of independence, but maybe get someone that could speak to those that are on the fence, that might be on the fence themselves, and have those conversations out, maybe recorded, maybe out in the open, so more people that are on the fence can also get together and discuss, not just those that are already on the yes side.
And we have the gift. We have a magical gift with this grassroots movement. We get to focus on a reset button, a positive vision of the future. This is what even though I didn't like him and his campaign did work, and that was hope and change with Barack Obama. And although I don't like Barack Obama, if you can focus on hope and change, it's been a strategy that has worked time and time. And we should have a vision of what we want for Alberta to give people hope. And then we have that secondary element where people want to stick it to the federal government because the direction they're going is obviously the wrong direction in every single aspect. So we have the perfect mixture to run a campaign if we can get content creators together and get the decentralized leadership together and really figure out the messaging here. Now, I know we've already voted for our own independence and left British Columbia and left Canada, and we're in Mexico now. We're with Alberta independence right to the very end. I have an axe to grind with the federal government. I want to see Alberta get its independence and chart a new path. So anytime there's online conference calls or anything like that, we're more than willing to come and figure out what the messaging is overall that we want the people to know.
I'm also figuring out how to go to Alberta soon enough over the summer. But exactly, and that is that one spark of hope that we saw, and that's why we decided to start talking about it and get fully behind it, because we already had our continue to have our axe to grind with the federal government, but also seeing that so many people together as a grassroots movement decided that no, we are not going to take it anymore and we can do something about it. And here's the actual methodology and the actual way we're going to do it. And that really gave me a lot of hope. And again, we are in Mexico now. I am from Mexico. We don't have personally much to gain from Alberta becoming independent other than continuing to support a freedom cause and a freedom movement that is like-minded and that can get something done for themselves and as a new country as well.
Well, and that's what we've been doing. We've been supporting freedom causes for the last 4 years. We started with the truckers convoy. We did the march across Canada. And as we can go through our history of videos, and it's all causes that Alberta independence is really representing in its first principles. And I also want to say there are literally millions of people at this year, hundreds of thousands of people every single year have been fleeing Canada. We've been watching videos and profiling. A lot of people in Central America and South America that were originally from Canada are saying they're moving to Alberta right now to vote for independence. There are national conservatives across Canada that are utilizing the Great Migration to move to Alberta to vote for independence as well. People are, at this point, a lot of people in national Canada are planning to flee to the U.S. Alberta is an option before they go to the U.S. to vote for independence and freedom. So we should appeal to those voters as well.
Tyler Robinson says, when Kenny put forward referendum to stop transfer extortion payments, 62% in favor, but Kenny did nothing. The independence movement has that as a promising mark to keep the faith. Yeah. That's a really good point as well.
And we should really, Jason Kenney is the main oppositional figure they're putting up right now. And that's a huge weakness and a huge strategy we can use against them, because bringing up old clips and old things he says, when he says Alberta needs to stay part of national Canada, well, just play the old clips and that should be enough to silence his voice. Yeah, his voice is getting raised every single day. And when I first pointed him out, people say, why am I talking about him? Because I could see even back then, he was going to be the primary voice the federal government put up. Because if they try to use Carney or somebody else, it just wasn't going to work. Jason Kenney's the best they have. And we have the trump card on him, which is his old clips and his old statements.
True. And And thank you so
thank
much.
you.
Hold on, let me go down. Thank you so much, JP Alberta First, for the $5 super chat, saying many of the older boomers from Trudeau Mania era in the 60s still hang on to getting rid of the monarchy and has been said, find the one issue. Exactly.
Yes.
Find the one. And I think that is a great way to look at it. And again, not getting angry at the fact that a poll was done by Rebel News that says XYZ, but use it as a moment to step back and think, okay, there's so many other people that we could be getting on board with voting yes on October 19th. And that should be, in my opinion, at least the principal goal of everything at the moment, and especially of the campaigning season.
Well, and I think there's a lot of NDP voters that are older voters, not the crazy young woke individuals, but a lot of people that are union members and stuff like that, just been lifelong members of the NDP in Calgary and Edmonton. Things are changing. Union, like I think we can appeal to that demographic specifically. I think the direction National Canada is going with federalization and things like that, unions are being captured, they're being distorted. We need to try to reach out to that older NDP demographic. Normally, that's not the kind of person that I talk to, but I know there's people within the movement that have the right pitch to them that lines up with our first principles as well, to say the NDP isn't what you think it is, Canada isn't what you think it is. It's time to really put it to the federal government. And on October 19th, you can do that and chart a new course for unions to be strong again.
And Republican Alberta says, online survey, I wouldn't put much confidence in this, friends.
Yeah, well, I really hope they do more surveys, and they did show a lot of the work. I'll say at this point, their survey, and there's somebody I trust more than these other national surveys. I didn't put any weight into any national survey. I thought we were at a tipping point of 50%. I trust this survey, the work they did on it, and the sub-demographics they showed. I think we should pay some heed to this, and I think they need to do more, and I think we directly need to make a plea to Rebel News to do some more. They're campaigning. They have money right now to do more polling for us. Yeah. With this shocking poll, maybe let's ask them to do a poll of 10,000 so we can really dig in deeper here.
Engage.
Even if this poll is wrong, it's not going to hurt us to say, well, can you do a larger poll of 10,000 or 20,000? I know it costs a lot of money, but we really need that right now, especially when we're just entering campaigning.
But even if you don't do the poll, and even if this poll is wrong, why is it wrong to think that we should be convincing more people to vote yes? Like, why not just heed the maybe wrong things that the poll was done wrong or whatever, but heed the advice of let's find more people to vote yes, and let's find the strategies to get those people also over towards independence.
New people that's coming to the country, migrants and things like that, that got their citizenship, that are able to vote. Donald Trump was able to appeal to those people into the States. He had massive amounts of immigrants that got their citizenship that could vote to vote for him. We can do the same in Alberta. Let's not just discard that. We have somebody like Igor that is absolutely crucial, that already is tapped into that audience because he was one of them. We need to utilize him to appeal, and we know they're a scared voting demographic. We need them to come out on October 19th, but we need to figure out what messaging works best with them. That's why polling with certain questions to certain demographics to see how they answer kind of helps us strategize when we do talk to people within those communities.
Yeah. Escape from Canada says, oh my, people don't realize they will not be able to travel to BC if the Carney government has its way, total lockdowns and zero travels unless your social credit score gives you special permission. That would be a great talking point as well.
Yeah.
People raise those questions. Harmony says, definitely currency and postage stamps. I haven't been to many of these meetings, but the CPP and traveling has been covered. But again, has that message reached the people that are still having those questions?
Well,
no.
and I think we're having the same, because I watch a lot of the Freedom Calorie stuff on the ground, and it's a lot of the same speakers, and they're doing a fantastic job, but they're saying the same messaging over and over to very similar demographics.
With very similar questions, too.
We need to throw events where we know it's in an immigrant community or it's primarily women at a campus, so we know what demographic we're talking to, and if we listen to the polling and we actually do polling ourselves to know what arguments appeal best to women, and then throw an event where we know a lot of young women or students will come to that, we need to have people that are specifically going to use that messaging. And for the migrant community, a lot of migrant communities are huddled together. So if we hold an event at a community center that's primarily attended by migrants, we know we're going to talk to that audience. What are the best arguments and who are the best influencers or best people to speak to that audience. Igor is definitely one of those people for that specific demographic.
Yes. And Harmony also says, we need someone from Alberta, not Toronto. I'm guessing referring to Ezra. Again, he's doing the work for you, and he's doing it all basically for free because he's not charging you to do it.
Okay.
And
well,
you can get polling done by someone else, by some other organization, but you'd have to get them to actually do it so you can continue to further strategize. This, be it wrong or right, and if you like Rebel and Ezra, or if you don't like them, take the information and the fact that, yes, maybe the message hasn't been reaching as many people as it could.
Well, and I will say, okay, let's just say he's from Toronto and we can't trust him. Now, I think Sheila Gunn Reid works for Rebel, and I think he's done honest polling here when I was looking at the work. That being said, we are raising money. We can sit some of that money aside to do our own polling. And if the data doesn't come back well, like Rebel News polling didn't come back well, we don't have to release that polling publicly. We can talk about it internally and utilize that to really focus in on our messaging for specific demographics and groups of people. Let's do our own polling if people in the chat generally aren't trusting Rebel News' polling. I think it's an indication that either hopefully Rebel News does more polling, but I think we can trust that polling, but it's an indication we need to do our own polling, keep that polling private, and discuss it internally to make an actual strategy going forward.
Exactly. And Glenn then says, postage stamps, kind of like pennies. Harmony says his words are not conducive whatsoever. Ezra's words, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Hold on. Mistletoe says, thank you. I was hoping you'd play this. Ezra has a lot of wisdom for us here.
And some people like Ezra and some people don't. I know a lot of people don't like, because we profiled Rebel News in the beginning. We profiled a lot of content creators because we wanted them to get together in the beginning and have unified messaging and a real campaign. And I think people are realizing that now. That's the whole reason we started doing interviews. We freaking suck at interviews. We're getting better as we go. But the reason we did interviews was to kind of see what people wanted, what their vision was, and hopefully have a unified message going forward into campaign season, which we're in now.
And different messages that can hit different people in a different way as well.
What I will say is I think if Rebel News did that report and they would have had Sheila Gunn Reid give out the report, I think it would have had a little bit of a better,
maybe
more of an impact within Alberta, and people might have trusted it more. But yeah. If they do more polling, maybe have Sheila Gunn Reid give it out to the public and say she's kind of behind it.
And Harmony says, let's move on, the guy. I think this is important. Again, you can continue to close your eyes and say, no, we're doing everything perfectly, or you can just bring in more strategies and bring in more ways to get more people to vote yes.
Yeah, and we'll read a few more comments here, but we do have a ton of news. I didn't realize it was going to turn into
but I think this is
a big discussion.
Maybe more.
But I knew it was going to turn into a big discussion. It's a discussion that needs to happen, especially going forward. And I'm glad the Fringe was in here talking about content creators are getting together so we can focus on what we need to do in campaigning now.
Sean, let me try to read a few quickly, just because, again, I think it is important. We did ask everybody for their opinion. So, Sean, hello, Sean, says, seeing him in a 49ers cap makes me sick to my stomach, meaning, what's his name? Michael Moore.
Michael Moore.
Yes. Lena Dog says, may the 4th be with you. Yes.
And we need to have a big turnout on Monday. That sends a message.
Yes.
There's going to be
an initial message. Yeah.
There's going to be 2 major attacks, I believe, coming on Monday from the mainstream media, because what happened late Friday night, I haven't seen any other channels report on it yet. Yeah. It had to do with the Centurion Project and the podcast called The Line. That podcast called The Line, she was the actual whistleblower, and she connected the dots, which she's trying to claim collusion between the Alberta elections and the Centurion Project. She's trying to connect a lot more dots that are there, but it's important that we kind of know that she's done a series of mainstream media interviews over the weekend, and she interviewed with every major outlet. Why do we know this? Because she did her podcast live saying she has interviews lined up for the entire weekend.
Yeah. Primors 007 says, hola Nat y Guy. Hello, says, came in late. Did I miss anything on the debate last night? Hit that like, folks, getting closer to 3,000. Yes. Thank you so much to everybody that has subscribed. Thank you to everybody that has pressed the like button. If you're liking the stream, please do so. And no, because again, it was at a private event, closed doors only.
And there's a fine for anybody that reveals anything that went on inside. Jason Levine kind of put that out there. And thank you for Jason Levine for putting that out there, because I was looking for information.
That's kind of what I was trying to say. say yesterday, it's not a good idea for members to try to get information out because there might be consequences.
Yeah, there's rumors that Keith Wilson got the best of Jason Kenney, and I think that's definitely the case. But
Obviously.
we really need that second debate so we can have something on film. This was an opportunity where we could have really clipped this debate. Thank you for Keith Wilson for doing the debate, though. It's much appreciated. And hopefully the next one is going to be on camera.
Harmony says, so let's get out and vote on October 19th for Alberta independence. Yes, but let's get more people out there to go vote for independence, or at least to show up for democracy and actually do the democracy that the Liberals are always talking about. Don Netflix says, great day, NNG, feeling very independent today. Good.
And again, I know these cities like Calgary, people say, well, we're never going to win that city. We're not trying to win the whole demographic of the whole city. We just want to peel off 10 or 20% of that vote. That's enough to make us win. We don't have to convince everybody. We have to convince 2 out of 10 people within that city to vote for Alberta independence.
Glengon says, Harmony just said it. Yes. And Sean says, so you want a strategy first? A yes vote needs to emphasize it opens up possibilities because with Canada, nothing is guaranteed, but voting yes needs to be perceived as opening options. No, and the no side would be closing those options.
Yeah, but I think what we're talking about in the way of strategy, and we're the smallest podcast within Alberta independence.
And we know less than we know more, as we always say.
We're just trying to do the best we can. But what we're saying is when it comes to campaign strategies and shifting votes and changing minds, it comes down to hitting specific demographics of people and knowing what messaging works best for that demographic, whether it's women, whether it's students, whether it's migrants, whether it's rural, whether it's city people. You need to throw events where you know that demographic is going to be there, and then have people that can talk to those people with the best talking points to hopefully change their mind, or at least plant a seed. You're never going to change somebody's mind right there on the spot, but usually what happens is you plant the seed, they go home, they think about it, they do other research, and then they come around. I know because I've changed my mind on subjects.
Harmony says, I had a nurse friend who stayed in my home. She was retired and gave up on the NDP. See, it can happen. It is possible. Sean says, second, where is the money for the yes vote? Alberta yes should have a ton of money, more emphasis on the positives instead of unknowns like having a sovereign wealth fund and having money abundance.
Yeah.
Harmony says, I like those charts, Ezra. Daryl says, Ezra, ask the right question, and Sheila Gunn is fearless.
Yeah, and let's just do... I don't really care. Like, this shows that we need to do our own freaking polling, and we need to do in-depth polling on multiple demographics and ask them very specific questions so we know what arguments to go into these districts with.
Yeah. Sean says, Alberta, yes, should be making deals with foreign oil companies, but then they'd be complaining about foreign interference to help fund a yes campaign. Otherwise, the government has too much money and you can't win. Campaigning is about money and you need it. But Alberta also has all the independent content creators and a lot of the messaging and volunteers and I think enough fed up people that are willing to just do it. just go out there and talk. And I mean, we saw the 7,000 canvassers that lent their time, volunteered, were there in freezing conditions. So we know that there's that ton of motivated people as well.
Yeah, you have a ton of international content creators as well. You have us, you have Viva Fry. There's a lot of people that were already pushed out of the country that are supporting not only Alberta independence, but Saskatchewan as well. Mm-hmm.
Richard Hayes, hello, says, I'm all for being a separate country, but it won't happen by saying Trump is good. We need to say that he is an idiot.
Well, and I'm not going to say he's good or an idiot, but the national side's definitely going to try to run the attack of the 51st state, and they're going to use old clips from the beginning of the independence movement when a few people said that. That's not the case anymore, and we need to be very clear. Number one, we don't want to be the 51st state, but also why we don't. It's not because we hate Trump or hate the United States. It's because the United States can be very bipolar in their nature. Every 4 and 8 years, it's either a Democrat or Republican, and they're undoing what the previous president had done. What we have as an advantage in Alberta is 93 years, you voted conservative. You're going to have a cohesive government that can put out a long-term vision and not constantly undermine your own vision. Mm-hmm. Sorry.
Exactly. Lena Dog says, man, has my life changed in the last 6 months with this whole new stance of being our own country. And I think many more people could get around to thinking that way and seeing it as an open change, as much as I hate that phrase because it's connected to Obama, but as a positive thing even if they don't agree with the initial messaging or whatever, you continue to stay with those cemented moral framework and values that you do want for an independent Alberta, but you can find other ways to convince other people and to get to that point to say, oh, actually, if we were independent, I'd be a lot better. And then a lot of things that I've been maybe not even noticing that I could be complaining about or that are affecting me, but that I just go about blindly in my life could be fixed and solved with an independent Alberta.
Yeah.
Harmony says Igor is fantastic and his wife is also fantastic and smart.
Well, and they both can talk to the immigrant community. We have immigrants that are supporting Alberta independence. We have 2 that are freaking content creators that already have audiences. Utilize them and then find more. Find more and throw events. Immigrant communities are usually consolidated together, so it's easy to throw events specifically targeted at immigrant communities. They're scared to vote for independence. They're scared to sign the petition. And that, in my opinion, is the best reason for them to come out and vote on October 19th. But I don't know that for sure. And that's why we need to do some polling with the immigrant community to figure out what arguments work best for them as a whole. Sometimes what we think works best as messaging isn't what works best. So we need to do our own polling internally.
Richard Hayes says supporting Trump will cause separation to fail. But should I go into the whole diatribe? But having Trump there saying that he would recognize an independent Alberta and having the Shield of the Americas also recognize Alberta as an independent country, especially if the negotiations within Canada don't go well for Alberta, is still important.
Saying we support Trump or we like Trump in certain rural areas is going to work. It's going to be good. And in Calgary and Edmonton, it's not going to work. It's not going to be good. Speaking to women and students and saying that we like Trump probably isn't going to work. That's why we need to do polling and we need to know what messaging to use when we have events of students and migrants and other demographics. But also we need to know specifically what messaging shouldn't be used at certain events.
Yeah, that's it.
Because if you use the wrong messaging at an event, the event could have gone very fantastically, but you planted perhaps the wrong seed. And polling can tell us this. And that's why we need to do more polling right now. We have quite a bit of time. This is our big advantage. Even if Ezra is wrong, there's no harm in us doing our own polling.
True. And as I always say, as individuals, you can talk to each other and talk to people around you and do kind of your own internal polling and see where the temperature is as well. And it is important to talk to each other in person, which is what I continue to say as well. Glenn Gunn says, Trump won't be here for long. Alberta is here to stay.
Well, that being said, we do need to understand that we either need Trump or a Republican within office when Alberta gets its independence and goes into negotiations with Canada, because we need to be recognized as a country by the United States if Canada refuses good faith negotiations. And if Gavin Newsom gets there in 2028, you got to figure Carney is going to pull out of negotiations. It's going to be bad faith negotiations. And then Alberta is going to be in a real bad spot. So we need to try to hurry up negotiations while a Republican is in office.
Yes. And Unacceptable Fringe says, I'm getting influencers together for a Change My Mind style interview in Edmonton and Calgary for this summer. We need to work together and be on the same page with no egos.
Oh, and I'm glad to hear you doing it in Calgary and Edmonton.
Yes.
And I think that's where we can, the most minds we can change are. I think it's also where the most people are going to disagree with us, but I'm really glad you're doing it in those 2 areas. And I was glad the debates were in those areas as well.
True.
Also, you're able to talk to the most amount of people within cities because there's so many people walking down the street and stuff like that.
Lena Dog says, so a pipeline in the U.S. recently announced by Trump is like he's the bad guy. To some people it is. And that's the thing. We do have to understand what kind of messaging works for what kind of people.
Well, and if we know the messaging, because he's approved pipelines.
And not taking it personally, too. I think that's an important point.
Well, he's approved pipelines. So when we talk to people in rural areas, we can say Trump's already approved pipelines. Carney's not willing to work with them. Obviously, this is a bad vision. But if we're talking to people in the city, we say the U.S. has approved pipelines and Carney's not willing to work with the U.S. This is hurting our economy. Just leaving Trump's name out of it when we speak to people in cities may have a bigger impact, but we can still use the same talking point.
But I even don't know if the oil talking point would even be as useful within cities, at least with certain demographics.
Well, you sometimes economic issues are going to sometimes be lumped together. I'm just spitballing ideas here.
Glenn Gunn says, no egos, giddy up fringe. Harmony says, Alberta independence.
Yeah,
yes.
and by the way,
and that's the main focus.
And by the way, we're a very serious podcast. We're saying be positive a lot lately. And this is kind of a serious talk. But the Fringe is very special within the Alberta independence movement because he's so humorous. Humor is not something easy to bring into a podcast or on a show. We have none of it.
Hey.
Or very little of
I have
it.
some of it.
And a lot of it's, I watch a lot of content creators.
Yeah.
It's very special when they can use humor. The Fringe has humor. That's his, I think that's his one of his big magic things he can do. And then it can interlink humor within Alberta independence and some very serious subjects. So,
I'm sorry, I saw a message. We keep calling him the Fringe unacceptable Fringe because the Fringe is someone else.
The unacceptable Fringe.
Sean says it would be better if oil hit rock bottom. The worse economy, the better for the yes vote. You got 40 plus won't vote because they're property owners making money due to immigration and rising prices.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't
Well,
want
and
that.
I'm also going to say this. I've been saying a lot lately that a lot of these national conservatives that are against Alberta independence are carrying water for us because they're talking about all the negative aspects of Canada and Carney. So when we bring up those talking points and clips on the show, I always say, thanks for carrying water for us, Pierre Poilievre. You may not be in support of Alberta independence, but you're damn sure pointing out all the mistakes in the direction of Canada, and you can't affect change. Alberta independence can affect change. We can affect change within a matter of months at a level national conservatives can't even dream of at this point.
Unacceptable Fringe says, together we stand or divided we fall. We either all work together or this will fall. Exactly.
Absolutely. And I'm really glad to hear he's talking about content creators are coming together. And when I was reading the chats beforehand, that seemed to be a lot of people were talking about content creators are coming together. And this is what I said when we were in the campaign season canvassing season, getting signatures. It was really on the backs of the canvassers at that point. I said, as we go into campaign season, it's going to be on the backs of the content creators and people on the ground, really standing up in front of crowds and stuff like that. It's two completely different strategies we need. So
Sean says, second, the government employment is very high in Canada and they all aren't voting to lose their jobs, so they will never vote yes. I think you could convince them as well because I have some friends within British Columbia, which is different, but that do work for the government in some sort of way. And they're fed up with the ways that the things are being managed and the fact that they've been having to hire, fire, and move people around and having project deadlines that are like 2 months when they should be a year long. Stuff like that if you get someone, even maybe from the inside already, to talk to those people about how badly the government and their own jobs have been managed, I could even think you could get those people as well to vote yes.
Well, let's not forget, we played the clip and there was 2 incidents like this already. They had freaking job fairs for young people. Yeah. Thousands of people lined up outside, couldn't even make it in the building, just standing there for hours. This is a perfect time to send people out there and talk to them or hold an event that's adjacent to it.
But you need young people to talk to other young people. That's the thing. You need the very specific messaging of someone that says, I'm almost in the same, if not in the same position as you are, and I understand. And this is why I would want independence, because all these things, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Coordinate the right people to talk to the right districts or the right sectors. Yeah. And this is what campaigning is really all about.
Unacceptable Fringe says, don't panic. I will be your leader. No, lol, kidding. I'm not leading material, says Unacceptable Fringe. Neither am I, neither are we. But we're just talking as citizens.
Well, maybe if you use your Trump voice, I'll follow you. Yeah. By the way, that is the best thing you do on the show. I absolutely love it. Yes. I don't know why you got rid of the Macho Man at the beginning of the thing. Oh, yeah.
That was his favorite thing.
I used to tune in a long time ago just to watch that opener.
82.0 says, Richard Hayes, we need President Trump. Going against him only satisfies the moronic left. Look how the USA treats Alberta and how it treats Canada.
Yeah. I mean, Alberta has a great relationship with the United States. Once we get our independence, man, things are going to be looking up for us. And it's going to really set the example for the rest of Canada to say to their citizens, why can Alberta have a good relationship with their neighbors, but we can't? Why are our elbows still up?
Sean says, I don't know how popular Trump is or isn't, but why would a foreign leader who is a lame duck be an issue at all? Let them do fear. People want to vote for something. A future, provide that. Yeah, and provide that voice and that positivity as well.
Yeah, and people have different visions of what they want in the future. And that's the thing. People in rural areas, oil workers, men, have a different idea of what they want to the future than women. But Alberta Independence is providing both of those futures for both of those groups, I believe. Very often we're talking to the people in rural areas and young men, but talking about family, having one income supply a household, things like this may appeal to women. There is other talking points that are in our first principles that will appeal to women that we need to bring up, maybe from women talking to women and young people talking to young people, and sending the right resources in the right area.
Harmony says, yes, our strategy is to get as many votes as possible. Exactly.
Thank you.
Lena Dog says, LFG, let's effing go. Yes. Harmony says, plant the seed, be kind and open-minded if they have different idea than you. And again, you can catch more, what is it? You can catch more flies with honey than vinegar. And I think that is the strategy moving forward, because they will stoop down to that level, and they will stoop down to the other side, the insulting and the using bad words and the isms and these are the horrible people, these are the radicals. Don't stoop to that level, because you can win a lot more and convince a lot more people by letting them look like the insane side, because they are the insane side.
Well, and also we maybe want to talk a little bit about the elephant in the room, and that's Danielle Smith. A lot of if you look at her polling, people absolutely love her. She's doing a lot of good policies. So when she does good policies, maybe we should praise her, but she can only do incremental policies. So when she does something good, point out she does something good, but say what we want to do in independence is go 5 steps further. This is the ultimate vision that we want, and this is what we can enact, because we don't have a federal government working against us. So understanding what characters are liked within Alberta amongst moderates and people that are on the fence, and who is not. So
Sean says, thank you, Unacceptable French, for leading. Lena Dog says, French forever. Ms. Daltote says, if there is even a decent chance Rebel is correct on their polling, we need to take heed. Well, and that I think that's the best perspective to take. If there's an ounce of truth within that polling, even if there isn't, this is a point and a talking point that needs to be at the forefront of how you strategize during a campaign. How can you get more yes votes, and what different messaging do you need for different demographics of people?
It's easy to know if Rebel News had good polling or not. We simply do polling ourselves.
Yeah.
It is
expensive.
It's that easy. Yeah, it's expensive, but we are raising money, and there are organizations with money right now. So obviously, when we're just starting campaign season, and a fundamental thing we need to do is polling. The fact that it hasn't been done yet, and I think maybe it hasn't been done because I think I was overconfident. I'm in a little bit of a bubble talking about this every day. This was a wake-up call. Let's do our own polling and see if it's true.
And it's good to realize that you might be in a bubble and thinking that this is going to go way better than you think, because that allows you to take a step back and say, okay, let's get out of the bubble and see how we can convince more and more people.
I mean, the freaking podcast we do twice a day has Alberta Independence plastered across the cover. So yeah, maybe it is a bit of an echo chamber, but maybe I need to start opening my mind and figuring out what the best arguments are for people that disagree with us.
And that's also why we want to be able to bring on people that disagree with Alberta independence, have the civil talks and debates in a polite way, and hear their talking points against Alberta independence, because right now, most of those are just being given by mostly the mainstream media, Lukaza, Kenny. But I want to talk to the actual people on the ground, or the content creators that are against independence, to hear their talking points as well. Because it helps strategize.
A different group that maybe we're not thinking about that I'm going to try to reach out to, and we're going to have to figure out how to reach out. We're well connected within Alberta when we're reaching out to people, but people in Quebec that are liberals that are pro-independence. If we can figure out why liberals in Quebec are voting for independence. Currently, it might appeal to liberals within Alberta, some of the same messaging, if we have some of the same first principles.
True.
So
Unacceptable Fringe says, people need to prepare for Monday. I am willing to bet my reputation that we have less signatures than Tommy. People are afraid. We have our work cut out for us. Let's get it done.
Well, and that was what I've kind of been saying. I was never wanting even 500,000. I kept saying I want more than Tommy, but it's good to kind of temper our expectations on Monday if it doesn't come there. We got the 188,000 that we need. That is the important thing. We have a strong grassroots movement, and now we're in a transitional period, and it seems like people are taking the idea of campaigning seriously now by getting content creators together like the Fringe in Alberta and Edmonton. So thank you to him. And yeah, whatever happens on Monday, I'm happy with what we got. Every canvasser that's out there, thank you for all the hard work that you did. It wasn't easy. You went out in the hardest weather conditions I've seen for any campaign.
Yes.
Globally.
Exactly. Lena Dog says, great discussion. Yes, and that's kind of why I want to keep reading the comments, because I think this was the main thing we wanted to talk about today. So
yeah, and usually we're very, very heavy on news, but I think it was a special discussion we needed to have. And I didn't know how many people were going to hear us, but I mean, the Fringe is the biggest voice within Alberta independence, and the fact that he's doing actual events and gathering content creators together to have a solid voice and things that we need to go forward is good. We're not just speaking out into the wilderness here. Sometimes that's what it feels like when you're getting on camera twice a day, but he's holding events on the ground and gathering content creators. So we know we're going in the right path.
But also thank you to all of you that do tune in when almost every single show we do, and that also have participated in the discussion, because I do continue to see a lot of the names that I'm used to. So it's great to hear your voices.
And we're going to go to about 7 o'clock tonight, just so everybody knows.
Richard Hayes says, I'm guessing you said that more for me. Richard Hayes says, we need to push that we are not the MAGA narrative.
Yeah, I don't necessarily, if we push we're not the MAGA narrative in some rural areas, that could backfire on us.
Sure.
So
depends on where you're
saying that we're an independence movement, and you don't have to say we're not this in a lot of places. Just focus on our positive vision of what we want for the future and know what talking points work best in cities. I mean, that talking point may very well work very good in Calgary. Yes. So yeah, that's something we have to know. We have to know who we're talking to and not always have the same message over and over and over for every single demographic, because we could poison pill some people to actually vote against us if we give the wrong messaging at certain events.
I feel like I have that spider on me.
We had a spider at the beginning of the show on the wall that I tried to kill, and it fell on the ground.
Right next to me, and he didn't, and now it's bouncing around. Who knows where it is. Escape from Canada says, don't forget there are those of us moving into Alberta that will be voting yes. And there's a lot of voices like that outside of Alberta too that left and escaped Canada, escaped from Canada, as they say here, and are willing to and are able to move back to Alberta.
And I've been saying this from the very beginning. I know I got a lot of heat from inside people in Alberta, but I said, when you look at the statistics, there's 250,000 people leaving every single year from Canada, going primarily to the United States, but Mexico as well.
And
a lot of the people that are leaving this year, rather than go directly to the United States, if you're willing to vote for independence and you're free to mind and go to Alberta. And most people that are leaving the country aren't liberals. They're conservatives that are fed up with the government. So appealing to these people to move to Alberta, I think, is a strategy we need to use. Also, we've profiled a lot of people that have already moved to the US, Central America, and South America. And they've been making videos on TikTok, YouTube, saying, we're moving back to Alberta because we want to vote for independence. We're selling everything that we have with it in a lot of these countries. So it's really, really good to see. And these are demographics of people that really believe in what's happening in Alberta independence because they feel like they were betrayed by their own government and they were forced out of their own country. I know how these people think because we're two of them.
Exactly. Really quickly, I'm just going to go to one of the last comments that came in because I have my phone here just to make sure I'm updated. Justin GP says, Nat, don't look, but there's a huge spider on your shoulder. There's your humor. If you do see a spider, please do let me know because it should be somewhere bouncing around here. Hold on. Rosie Lab says, hi, everybody. Nice to see so many jumping in. Yes, and that's kind of why I do want to keep reading the comments, even though he doesn't want me to.
And again, this is kind of a special episode where we're talking about campaigning strategies going forward because I think there needed to be a talk about it.
And also, currently, we're not really connected to any of the actual campaign groups that there are right now in Alberta. We're talking just as seeing it almost from the outside in a little bit.
Yeah.
But then we talk about this day in, day out about Alberta independence.
But on Monday and going back to next week, our normal show has normal sections and normal news. But if you have ideas for campaigning or strategies that you think's good, just chime in with it because this is probably one of the most important discussions we can have. And we're a primarily news-based show. But if you have ideas for campaigning that will work, tell us. We're going to tell other people and we're going to disseminate good ideas, hopefully.
Sovereign Perspective says to the Unacceptable Fringe, I think you are correct as well. However, considering we had so many things we had to follow to complete this process, I don't think it's a bad thing. We had to verify signatories.
Oh, I'm lost on the discussion a little bit.
Me too. Because sometimes some messages don't show up.
Yeah, that's fine. Don't look back. Just keep going forward because we have a lot of messages. But
Charlie Defoe says, hi from Sherwood Park, Alberta. Great show, folks. Sure would like to hear how separation would affect my OAS and CPP pension. For the positive, that's all I survive on, and it's not enough.
yeah, and we primarily all do live shows now. We argue a lot when we do edited videos. That's the real reason we don't do a lot of edited videos. We get along great when we're doing lives. Also, we get along great when we're doing interviews. But when I look at our demographic stats, we have a lot of people that are over 55 and especially over 65. So we might need to do a lot of videos about the CPP. That's the number one requested issue that we kind of talk about. So content creators should look at their demographics as well, who their audiences are, so they know exactly who they're talking to about Alberta independence.
True. And I really do want to do a video specifically, and I continue to say that, about the CPP, but also about how mismanaged it has been by the federal government and how a lot of people that are worried currently about what's going to happen to it don't even know how it's been managed within Canada already, and how a lot of money has been lost through the Canada Pension Plan investment arm and corporation, etc., that has been fully mismanaging that money and losing a bunch of it on different markets. So believe me, it is at the forefront of my mind as well.
Well, and I've been a proponent of we need leadership. I was always calling out Keith Wilson, hoping he would be leader. A lot of people think we don't. Either way, whether we have a leader or we don't have a leader, we definitely need cohesive messaging here.
We need spokespeople.
And we need to know who exactly we're talking to. So it's good to hear the Fringe is on top of that right now.
Rosie Lab says, I think we need to do an ad campaign, blanket the province with information, easy to digest bits. That too, in a way.
It's really expensive to do that, and we're not going to have as much money. So we need to have interesting campaigns. And what I was talking to you about, and I think I was talking to the guy we were interviewing today after the interview was over, was because we do all long form content. He does all long form content, but he was talking about his wife was watching something, and then she brought up a talking point he talked about. He's like, I did 45-minute show on that, but short clips. I don't like doing. A lot of content creators don't, but they stick in people's minds, especially people that aren't typically politically active. So getting content creators to maybe make shorts about very specific issues could be something that would work very well. Homes with Homes is a channel within Independence, a family that does that very well. They talk about very specific issues, make it easy to digest within a 60-second or 3-minute clip.
Troglodyte says, complacency isn't a good strategy, which a higher poll result might cause. In the long run, it's better for motivation.
Yeah.
And again, I fully agree. That's kind of what I was trying to say at the beginning. Yes, complacency is not a good strategy. Blinding yourself to results that might not align with where you thought you were or what you were, or that say that everything you're doing is great, in the long run is not going to help get more people to go vote yes.
Well, and also crossing our T's and crossing our I's, figuring out...
Dotting our I's, crossing our T's.
Yeah. Figuring out a lot of things that could undermine us on October 19th as well. I looked a lot into, and we did a lot of reporting on what happened in Arizona for the last election. And what they did was they shut down a lot of polling booths for a lot of different excuses. It ended up being like 10% of polling booths had major issues. And what I learned from the statistics on that and the polling on that, a lot of people that left those polling stations because there were closed or there were delays never went to another polling booth and voted. And they made sure that the cities were blanketed with polling booths within Arizona. So if anything went wrong, people would just walk across the street or walk down a couple blocks and take another vote. So if there is any manipulation or something like that on October 19th, we need to understand how that's going to happen and make sure people are willing to go to a second polling booth, where the second polling booths are, stuff like that. Yep. It's not something I'm really focused on, but it's something I know came up in Arizona a lot.
Glenn Gunn says, CPP and OHS won't skip a beat. CPP is your money. Miss Altote says, the founders of the USA and the apostles in the New Testament all had bitter personal clashes and deep differences in how they wanted to do things, but they still kept focus and changed the world. That is the most important thing. Exactly. Thank you. Lenda, sorry, I keep saying Lena. Lenda Lendog, there we go, says, Charlie, your pensions are secure and would increase, in my opinion. And again, we do need different people to talk to different demographics.
Pointing out what's going on with the CPP in national Canada. We don't need to say exactly what we're doing point for point. A big strength of ours is Carney's gambling with the CPP, investing in India, overseas, everywhere else, not investing it in Canada because he knows Canada's weak right now and he knows he has a weak vision for Canada. Also, if you compare the CPP, the retirement pension funds for national Canada and Quebec, it's also interesting as well because Quebec's is much better managed. And just pointing that out, be like, we need to get control of our own CPP. And the best way to do that is through independence. So we can invest within Alberta and build a strong Alberta that's internally self-sufficient.
Harmony says, I met a young woman with purple hair and a child in tow. I thought I was going to have a challenge, and she believes in independence, I'm guessing, and does homeschooling. And again, sometimes sometimes people will surprise you as well.
And there's a lot of horseshoe theory going on within politics right now because I watch a lot of liberal channels. I'll watch a lot of radical left because I want to know their talking points so I can make the best talking points against them. I often yell at the TV and debate with the freaking TV. Yes. That being said, there's a lot of freaking communists and stuff like that within Quebec that support freaking independence. And if they're supporting independence in Quebec, it's going to be very interesting to see that similar demographic within Calgary, within Edmonton. A lot of those people aren't going to be necessarily against Alberta independence like we think. They're probably going to stay home on the day of the vote, which also helps us. Let's just remember, we don't need to always convince every demographic we're talking to in Calgary and Edmonton to come out and vote for independence. That would be the best case scenario. But the next best case scenario is to plant a seed in their head to say, you know what, I want to see what happens with this thing. I'll just stay home on the day of the vote. That's another strategy as well.
And also, that doesn't mean that you're going to compromise all your principles and then turn them over to the communists that you might be speaking with. Again, speaking with people doesn't mean bowing to their every whim and every need and saying, oh, we're going to go with this strategy now, but just listening to the talking points might help with your own talking points
we need to know what our first principles are and stay true to those. Yes, we're talking to different demographics of people. We're not lying to them or using new talking points. What we're using are the same fundamental talking points and first principles that we have, but using different ones and leaving other arguments out when we're talking to different demographics of people. This is common political strategy. Anybody that's running a campaign would do the same thing.
Beulah Hiller says, watching from Alberta. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Jessica P says, I'll see y'all at Elections Alberta on Monday in my dirty Tacoma. I'll bring extra flags.
Well, your Tacoma's famous and everybody knows it by now.
And thank you for all the work Jessica GP has done for Alberta independence as well, canvassing even in the most rural, cold parts of Alberta as well, and letting us know about it too.
Yeah.
Rosie Lab says, you still hold the Canadian passport. You will be a dual citizen. Your CPP will always be yours, as well as your OAS. You earned that in Canada.
Well, and I just want to play one clip and then we can go back to this discussion we're having.
Can you pass me my charging cable?
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to kind of sneak and try to grab it, but it's too far away. Thank you.
I wanted to play the one clip and I just want not to recommend this podcast. As a matter of fact, if you go watch this full episode, just so we know what's going on from the other side. This is the whistleblower that said she set a lot of this thing up against the Centurion Project. So don't subscribe to this channel if you go watch this podcast, but to know the dots they're trying to connect, and they're probably going to try to connect them all on Monday through mainstream media because she's been doing a ton of mainstream media interviews over the weekend. Oh. How do I know this? Because she literally said it in her live podcast.
Wait, hold on. Speaking of, because I did see, who was it? I think Justin GP. Justin GP did put this up and said, don't watch that video from the whistleblower to keep views low. To keep views low, watch the clips from other content creators on the independent side. And that's what we're going to do right now. But again, I do kind of...
And let's just play the one clip where she says she's talking to mainstream media for right now.
Yeah. Hold on, because I need to, because we've been talking so much.
I'm not really that concerned about keeping her views low. What I'm more concerned about with is the mainstream media is going to blow this thing out of proportion next week. And I think they're going to do it on Monday to kind of try to counter message the petition we're putting out.
Exactly.
And the reason I'm showing this is just to prepare for the attack that may come on Monday. Now, hopefully it doesn't, but she's done enough mainstream media interviews. Her podcast doesn't really matter. She has 7,000 subscribers. Yeah. It's the mainstream media attack and the interviews she did through mainstream media. And I'm already seeing articles pop up with her interviews.
And I'm sure they're going to try. This might also be an opportunity to try to get this thing even bigger for her in a non-organic way, I will say. But let's watch all the things she's done. She did on Friday. This is from Friday.
This is the whistleblower from the Centurion Project. She's the one that contacted Elections Alberta.
Initially, and then
she
the second
explains
time.
it in depth here. We're not going to play the full hour. I've already kind of watched it. It was interesting because now I know the attack that's most likely coming on Monday through the mainstream media, through interviews that she did with them.
At the focus of attention here. But Jen, can you set the stage for us? Can you tell us, don't even bring in your own role, but tell us what has happened in Alberta politics over the last 24 hours.
Firstly, can I just preface this by saying this is going to be a short podcast because my day this got blown up on me. Like after I finished recording this, I have apparently sit-down interviews with CTV, CBC, Global, local podcaster, local radio host, and then maybe CBC again. So I've just gone to my husband and been like, this is going to be one of those days where you have to feed me because I'm
And that was just at that point. She's put out other messaging now that she's done even more interviews. So just be prepared on Monday for this narrative they're going to try to...
that they're building.
They're going to try to build. And if you watch the end of that interview, she literally says, we need to make sure all petitions are null and void, and we go back to the old system where you have to run for elections in order to change the system. What's happened with the Centurion Project needs to close the door on both questions, both Lukaszik's as well as Stay Free Alberta's. That's what she's going to want to do. She's going to have that messaging on mainstream media. That's the attack that's coming on Monday. I think it's a bunch of malarkey. Centurion Project's going to court. Let's wait to see what kind of happens with that. But we need to also push back and say Stay Free Alberta had nothing to do with that. They didn't share these lists or anything like that.
And also that by shutting down citizen petitions, you're literally shutting down democracy, because the way she argues for shutting down citizen petitions just in general in Canada is by saying that they're undemocratic, which is absolutely insane.
And the reason I was able to broadcast that so quickly because her live stream went on just before we went on Friday, and I happened to watch them usually before we go on the show because I want to know the Liberal talking points against Alberta independence. And that's one of the few independent podcasts that puts a lot of talking points out against Alberta independence. And it just happened to be that she was the freaking whistleblower. It shocked me when I turned on that episode.
Yeah. He came running in as I was getting ready and said, oh my God, this crazy lady I watch is actually involved in all of this. And he explained it to me all.
I was a little bit amped up on Friday because I was like, what the hell is she trying to connect here?
Yeah. But it was good to be able to see how they're trying to connect it and what the mechanism is going to be on Monday.
Okay, we can go back to comments. Sorry, I just wanted everybody to kind of be prepared.
Yeah.
Because everybody's expecting to celebrate on Monday, and so am I with this petition. But we just expect the mainstream media might try to flood us with a bunch of negativity. Let's try to flood social media with a lot of pictures
positivity
and videos of what's happening with the petition and us submitting that.
Yeah. Miss Alto says, Rich Barris. And Primorse77 says, I would vote yes to separation to slap that little smug bastard PP or Pierre Poilievre. It will never happen, just like you being prime minister. Fully agree with you, Primorse77.
But again, Pierre Poilievre is at least pointing out what Carney's doing wrong and the direction Canada is going, which is absolutely absolutely a disaster. If they're able to get Pierre Poilievre to step down and they replace him with a Jason Kenney or a Doug Ford, there's nothing going to be said on a national level about Mark Carney that's bad anymore. And then we're going to have to take that completely on our shoulders. And that takes away from the time we can speak about the positive vision that we want from Alberta. So national conservatives that don't support independence but talk about the wrong direction Canada and Mark Carney are going are helping us out a lot. It doesn't mean I'm endorsing them. It means allow them to keep talking negative so I can post their clips and I can focus on the positive vision a little bit more.
Jason GP says to Charlie Dufault, there's a 2-page summary of the fiscal proposition called Value of Freedom that addresses your concerns, and you'll be happy with the results. Full document is 140 pages with cited sources. But a lot of people don't know that, for example. So that would be another good thing to bring up.
No, and a lot of content creators did full readings of that document, and I watched them. Homes with Homes, I think, was one of them. John Talking to Alberta read a few other documents that were very lengthy. I think what we need to do, because we're not trying to appeal to Alberta independence supporters, we need to make short clips of very specific things within that, where we're reading it right out of that document, that will stick into people's heads that are on the fence and not politically active. Maybe that's just another strategy I'm putting out there.
Yeah. Harmony says the key word if the poll was done correctly. However, we certainly can learn from his poll. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest takeaway that we should be taking away. And that it was essentially done for free for us to know that there needs to be more different strategies going forward.
Well, at best, just put it as a red.
We're just starting now, so there's a lot of time too.
Best case scenario, put it as a red flag, saying, okay, we need to do our own polling here to confirm this. And let's just say his polling was wrong. We did our own polling and we're way over the target, meaning our numbers are really good. That's not gonna hurt us. No. It's also gonna help us to craft good messaging for very specific demographics. Yeah. The way he did the poll and the questions he asked to specific demographics is the way we want to conduct our poll. I think they conducted a good poll on the questions they asked overall.
Tall Talks, hello, says Jess, I'm coming from Red Deer. Maybe we'll run into each other. Rosie Lab says, may the 4th be with you, heading to deliver the petition. Yes, and we will also be trying to attempting to cover it from over here during our 2 shows on Monday as well. Troglodyte says, there's so many reasons for people to bite for independence. You just need to find the ones that appeal to different groups.
Yeah,
and realizing that you need to appeal to different groups as well, not alienate them, not vilify them completely, but say, how can we actually get them to either change their minds or not go voting for no on October 19th?
Yeah. And it was very interesting because our interview with Maxime Bernier is coming out tomorrow, but he said a couple of things I didn't necessarily agree with because I'm so in support of actual independence. I don't want to see some negotiated settlement, and I don't want to see the 51st state. I want to see an independent Alberta. But he really pitched it as a politician. He says some people are going to want this, some people are going to want 51st state, some people are going to want a negotiated settlement like Quebec has. So whatever they want. And we need to understand what demographic of people we're talking to sometimes. Some people want a negotiated settlement, but will vote for independence because they want that negotiated settlement. Yeah. We want that vote. I don't want that negotiated settlement. I want freaking independence because that's how we really fix the root of the problems that are happening in Canada.
Yes. Justin GP says that'd be awesome to see him. Look for my dirty taco. I'm sure there'll be lots of Tacomas there, though. Harmony says Sheila believes in the oil and gas industry. This is a good thing. Yeah. Sheila's great. Tamara's great. They both work for Rebel News. They're their core anchoring Rebel News within Alberta. Yeah. So. Richard Hayes says, I want to separate, but be prepared for a big influx of Liberal voters from outside Alberta before the vote. It's going to be, and this is the point, what I'm saying, we need to appeal to national conservatives. We know they're leaving in the hundreds of thousands every single year. You have to expect there's 250,000 people we can appeal to that are planning to move to the United States. Appeal for them to move to Alberta. They're already planning to move to the United States. It's easy to get them to shift. It's much harder for the nationalists to get Liberals to actually move and uproot their life to move to Alberta to vote for Alberta to stay when these Liberals aren't even connected with Alberta in the first place. It's going to be much easier for us to appeal to national conservatives and people that have already left the country to move back to Alberta to vote for Alberta independence. We have the motivated population to vote for independence. The Liberals don't. And sorry, RUMBLE, I have been ignoring you for too long. Rusty, hello, Rusty says, hi, y'all. I'm still around. Thank you so much. Says, I just don't have anything nice to say. The best is I can bite my tongue for a while. KP4U says, I'm the same, brother. Most of my words are too explicit for RUMBLE. My real Albertan vocabulary is going to come out. Rusty says, not that it's too spicy for Rumble, more so it does no good for me to give black pills in the chat. It just brings everyone else down. No, but we like opinions, and we like all kinds of opinions as well. KP4U says, that's awesome. Take the high road. I admire that. Yeah, and it seems like we're really transitioning as a whole into
campaigning. I think this Rebel News report was a help overall. It's shaken some people up. We often say, how do we shake the movement up and realize we need to do more? We need to really think about how we're going to start campaigning here. We're transitioning from canvassing to campaigning, and it's a big transition, and we need to make that. And it seems like a lot of content creators and the movement in general, the decentralized leadership is realizing now's the time to transition, which is good.
Cindy Melnick says, funny how I never see these polls and have never been polled. Tall Talk says, Jess, I'm tall and I'll be wearing a cowboy hat and toting a black background Alberta flag.
And we got about 10 minutes left, just so everybody's kind of aware.
We still have quite a few comments.
Okay.
Tall says, Cindy, I've been polled a few times. Justin GP says, look for you, look for me, look for each other, and be there together. Hold on. No, it says, I'm the one with the blue hair, septum ring, shouting dirty traitors, joking.
Oh, and I wanted to bring something else up. I think our biggest asset is actually debates. The way I've changed my mind the most time I watched a lot of debates was always watching a debate. And somebody I disagree with sometimes planted that seed that changed my mind. Mm-hmm. We don't have a lot of people we can debate publicly right now. We're going to start reaching out, I think, to people within National Canada, hopefully try to get Liberals on as well. I need to invite them on to ask them what they think about Alberta independence, to build some kind of relationship so that I can then ask them if they want to debate somebody from the other side. I can't just go out and ask them to debate because it's too confrontational. It won't necessarily always work. So I think debates, and if we can start organizing debates, not just between big figures like Jason Kenney and Keith Wilson, but just normal people, have them debate. Yes, it's a risk if we run debates, but we have stronger talking points than them on every single level. If we can get Liberals and NDP members to engage in debates, I think it's a strategy that works, and I think it's very cheap to do. It doesn't cost any money. We already have content creators online that can host these debates.
And it also helps sharpen your talking points.
Yeah.
When you're able to test them and have them against someone that is on the other side. Lal Norman says, Lethbridge is going to be the hardest to convince. Lethbridge University is full of brainwashed people.
Well, and we need to figure out how to get on university campuses. We need students that are already going to that campus that they maybe can't kick off if they start dialogue and conversation, because we know they don't like dialogue and conversation. They just arrested somebody the other day.
Yes, within Alberta, which is insane. Primors 007 says, I am making progress right now to leave Canada if the vote doesn't go the independence route.
And a lot of people are, and there's nothing to be ashamed of that. We left. There was no Alberta independence
movement
at the time. But also, just how you're making plans to possibly leave if independence doesn't go our way. A lot of people are making plans right now to move to Alberta to vote for independence, and we need to make a appeal to those people. We've been doing it for months now.
To not just bypass Alberta and go to the States immediately, but to consider going to Alberta because it might become independent.
And use the United States as a safety net.
It will become independent.
And to use the United States or Mexico as a safety net if Alberta independence doesn't go our way.
Charlie Defoe says, as an old guy, I signed the petition for my grandchildren. Enough is enough from Ottawa interference. Ontario and Quebec voters should not decide Western values and jobs ever. It's so one-sided. And I fully agree also with what Keith Wilson and Jeff Rath always say, that Canada might just be too big of a country to properly function as a country itself.
Yeah.
And it's nice to hear that as well, that signing the petition for the grandchildren and for thinking of the future generations as well and how this will positively impact them, and maybe talking to those younger generations right now to let them know how it affects them positively if Alberta becomes independent, and contrasting it with their current situation right now, which I'm sure is not great. I mean, most of them are trying to go to university, have 2 or 3 different jobs, and they know that the situation isn't right, but maybe they've become so accustomed to it and so willfully blind to how bad it is that they're willing to listen to the other side and to say, well, I mean, if that is a possibility, I'll continue to consider and maybe vote yes for independence. Edward says, I think your interviews are excellent. Thank you. You're one.
Ooh, I don't think they are. And once
but we want to keep improving as well.
She usually leads the interviews. Today I tried to, and the thing just freaking fell apart. And I was like, okay, you're the primary
and I try to recover it as much as I could.
You're the primary one going forward, asking the questions for all of our interviews. No, I didn't.
Escape from Canada says, just to clarify, you were calling him the Fringe. There's someone else by that name. Derek is unacceptable. unacceptable Fringe. Sorry.
Unacceptable Fringe.
Or Dirk.
I've been watching the Fringe for a long time, and I always just call them
Unacceptable
I know,
Fringe.
but I always just say the Fringe, so it's a force of habit. Just like when I first started talking about the independence movement, I made a mistake, like a lot of content creators did, of calling it a separatist movement. And I think if people are supporting Alberta independence and they are content creators, just telling them politely, it makes a big difference to call it the independence movement, because I still see there's a lot of national content creators that are coming out to support Alberta independence that are still calling it a separatist movement. I think Ellie Catan,
Ellie, I don't know really how to say his name. The independent reporter, Ellie Kinton. And
he's doing a great job with his
going to
on-the-ground
universities.
reporting, but he's still calling it a separatist movement. So hopefully he changes that.
But maybe that is also, again, thinking of strategies, that is also a way to get to those that are against it.
I don't think it's a good strategy overall.
Not overall, but again, they might not listen to the word independence, but they'll listen to the word separation.
But I don't.
That's what they've been propagandized with.
Yeah,
up
but it's
to this
not a good
point.
idea because you're putting it out to a very broad audience. If you're talking to somebody in
One-on-one.
Calgary or one-on-one, maybe that could be a strategy.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Troglodyte says, remind immigrants why they left their crap countries because of governance and corruption and how Canada is headed there now. Again, as someone from Mexico, I saw it firsthand and I started saying, hey, I would basically be doing way better in my country, which is a shithole currently, and the government is horrible and the governmental system itself is so corrupt, but at least they don't have the mechanisms to fully implement it like they are in Canada. For example, that was one of the reasons why.
Using
that I saw.
using Mexico, and that's what nobody's doing. When we were from Mexico, maybe it's good talking
For us
points for
to
us
see,
to bring
yeah.
up. Mexico is doing fantastically well. They have a liberal, an ideologically liberal president, just like Canada, but she's decided to talk shit on Trump publicly. He lets her do that, but behind the scenes, she's cooperating militarily and economically, and the peso has gone up 30% compared to the Canadian dollar because she is willing to cooperate. And one out of every $4 the U.S. is clawing back in its trade war from China is being invested in Mexican manufacturing. And as a lot of these Canadian industries are hollowing out, Trump's saying we don't want them. He's sending a lot of them to Mexico because they're low-end manufacturing. He wants more high-end manufacturing in the States. So pointing out the direction Canada is going and that Mexico's outperforming them at this point is something that might work well with some audiences.
True. Rosie Lab says, Alberta does have about 30% NDP party here. They are against leaving, it seems. And I don't think that they're all a lost cause either. And if you just discard them as a lost cause, maybe you might be losing some. Yes,
they're not a homogenized block, and I'm realizing this. There was a lot of people going from NDP to UCP when they announced their new national leader because they're just in complete disagreement. They're going very hard communist, and a lot of the older NDP voters are actually union voters and things like this, and probably don't agree with the direction the party is going, but they've been lifelong NDP voters, so they just stick with them. This is an opportunity. We're not asking them to switch parties. We're asking them to vote for independence, which would be good for unions overall, probably.
Yeah. Primors 007 says, I find it hilarious when you and Nat give each other little annoyed looks, especially when Nat does it, and she does it a lot. Lol. I get annoyed a lot. you should live in my shoes.
I'm pretty annoying, I guess.
Troglodyte says, hold the job
Oh,
fair.
you should have seen her before the show. My God, I give our dog a little bit of peanut butter treats to calm her down before the show. And I didn't do it today. And she's like, did you give her the peanut butter? And I was like, no. He's like, I have to do it. I was like, yeah, you have to do it today.
And I did it. Troglodyte says, because usually I'm the one that's getting everything ready here for the show. Troglodyte says, hold the job fair and ask young people what kind of jobs they want and explain how independence will give them that opportunity and how Canada is taking it away.
That's a great idea because I pointed out the job fairs going out the door and I said, we need to have adjacent events or talk to the people in the line, but actually holding a job fair event is even a better idea.
Harmony says, I think a good strategy would be to get an Asian to speak about Alberta independence.
Yeah.
And a bunch of different people from a bunch of different backgrounds. And maybe specifically somebody that did escape from the CCP and can speak about on that and how Canada is literally aligning with them now publicly, openly.
We need to recruit these people in, and that we don't need to make them whole social media platforms, because we already have a ton of social media platforms within Alberta Independence that are already kind of built up. We just simply identify who these people are that are supporting Alberta Independence and bring them on our channels for interviews and send them from channel to channel so that messaging really gets out there. I might have a certain demographic and the Fringe might have another one, and Igor definitely has a different demographic as well. So sending that individual to interview with all these different channels, we can disseminate that out there and really appeal to different people with a different message.
But also in person, speaking at in-person events if they're willing to do so.
Yeah.
Too. Sean says, be the meme, I am one of you kids. Yeah. Harmony says, I met an Indigenous person, I guess, the other day and worked for the government, and she mentioned to me how employees are not respected.
Well,
You can get those people to talk to others and say, hey, yes, you work for the government, and yes, you don't want to lose your job, but how has the government mistreated you? And they will tell you, because it's not as rosy as many people think that haven't worked for the government. And
And again, we did make a plea as a whole from the Alberta independence movement, even though there was no leadership and we're kind of decentralized. A lot of content creators were calling on, and I know we made the direct call to a lot of First Nations members to kind of speak out if you were in favor of independence, because I thought there was a divide between the members and the elites in the tribe. And there definitely was, because a lot of First Nations individuals stepped up, like Darren that wrote that letter. Other First Nations individuals put a lot of things on camera saying we support independence, and a lot of people within the First Nations support independence. So really kind of continuing to lean into that and bring these people on for interviews as well, because they're going to continue to use First Nations as a dividing mechanism. And I think we've done a good job at counter messaging that through First Nations members.
Sean says the left tends to gravitate to ad hominem attacks because they believe they're right to be evil, while the right sees them as misguided. And that is one of the main issues between the balkanization and the separation and the moving away from even being able to talk to each other. So taking that into account is important.
And we'll do a few more comments. We're going to wrap it up.
I'm going to try to read through all of them. Maybe we might not fully answer all of them right now, but I do want to read them all.
Oh, okay. We'll go 15 more minutes.
Yes, just shorten your answers. Concise. As he always tells me, be more concise. And he always starts to sum up all my points. Now I'm telling you, be more concise.
Okay.
James B says, we also need to talk a bit about the future with the opening of our resource sector. The new generated income will be huge. More AG sales, more lumber, more mining, more oil and gas, etc.
And I agree with that, because those are the talking points that appeal to me, but I'm a man, and I think a lot how rural people think. That being said, what we need to focus in on is how the natural resource sector can develop the manufacturing sector so we can have end-to-end self-sufficiency, meaning the minerals come out of the ground, they're refined, and then they're brought directly to the manufacturing sector. So we're making our own products and our own industries, because a lot of people don't work in the resource sector. So they think, well, why do I care about the resource sector? It's because we're going to try to create end-to-end manufacturing. They're going to create a lot of new industries outside of the resource sector based upon the resource sector, and how the resource sector can work in conjunction with other manufacturing arms.
Harmony says, I know that proper tests are hard to make, and polls as well. Certain questions have to be eliminated. Yeah, that too. And again, it could just be an incentive to make more polling and to ask more people their opinions. Sean says the Quebecois see themselves as not Canadian due to their use of French, and view themselves as better than Canadians, and especially better than Americans, not going to work for Alberta.
Yeah, but there are different arguments. Not everybody in Quebec are voting for independence because of identity politics. Some of them are voting for other reasons as well. So understanding what those sub-demographics are as well. They're not just using one messaging in Quebec either. Mm-hmm. There's multiple messages going out there, paying attention to what they've done in the past. And Sheila Gunn Reid wrote an entire book on this. It's just, we might not use everything that they did, but just seeing what they did so we can use some of it. what worked for them might work for us as well.
Primors 007 says the CPP is already gone. Carney gave it to India and to a bunch of other different markets as well. And nobody really seemingly knew that so much money was lost and that how much money the people that run the CPP investments actually make. There's 1 year where they made more money themselves than the CPP in the market itself. Sean says, humor, not humor. Alberta should push for adoption of America's spelling and adoption of imperial measurements using the F and miles. You know, the UK still used miles. I'm not a huge fan of miles because my whole life here in Mexico, we also use the metric system.
And I like miles because I was born in Canada, raised half and half. So I got both systems equally, but I ended up liking miles and inches and stuff.
Not me. I still don't understand it, and I lived in Canada for 13 years where it's at least a mix of both.
Yeah.
Here we just use the metric system. Dollar Robinson says, educational campaign on the benefits of independence for university students and the over 65 crowd worrying about the CPP. Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes, an educational campaign, a campaign with the CCP or CPP we need as well. Yep. We need campaigns from influencers and messaging specifically when we have some of these gatherings, we just talk about that one issue in depth that appeals to that demographic. Often when I notice when I'm watching a lot of the Freedom Calendar events he's putting out, we're talking about these big, broad messaging and a million things. If we're knowing we're going into a migrant community or we're going to talk to a group of students, we only need to talk about a few issues, focus in on that, and really broaden it out into a deeper conversation. That will not only plant the seed, that will give them confidence that we're going to actually make the change.
And I think the confidence is one of the big sticking points at the moment that is still a sticking point for a lot of people.
Yeah, we don't need these broad conversations every time. Sometimes they're good, but sometimes we just need to focus in on certain
specific aspects,
certain specific issues for certain specific groups.
Escape from Canada says, I would like to see, and this is a great idea, I would like to see a really good professional pamphlet PDF that can be downloaded and we can all print it ourselves and distribute what we can, something explaining pointers about independence.
That's a fantastic idea. And because we're so limited on resources, having it that people can print it out themselves and distribute it is a way to save costs as well. We're going to be outspent by $1 billion in this thing. We are the underdogs. Also, this is another good talking point. Who's lined up against us are the elites and the globalists and politician after politician after politician, conservatives, liberals, NDP, every politician's lined up against us. We are a grassroots movement of citizens standing up and trying to take the power and control back from the politicians that are corrupt in Ottawa.
And who doesn't like the elites either, or at least they say they don't? Communists. So there's a talking point for you.
I didn't think about that.
Point for you. Escape from Canada says the goal of Carney is to have everyone on basic income, no more CPP for anyone.
Yeah, and
a good talking point.
Sometimes it's hard to connect those future dots on things Carney hasn't done yet. We all can see it coming, the people that are paying attention, but for people that aren't paying attention, they start calling you conspiracy theorists and stuff like that. I talk a lot about those issues. The problem is people that aren't politically active become disengaged sometimes when you talk about certain things.
Rosie Leb says, I love how you two are brainstorming ideas. That's great. And I think that's what people should be doing daily, talking to each other when you go to these events on May the 4th, all the time, and speaking to each other in person as well. James B says, explaining the massive benefits to our elderly and vets, they should have been given more a very long time ago.
Well, and we also need to realize when we hold these events in rural areas where we have the majority of the vote, it's almost an echo chamber at this point because we've done such a good job, but we're continuing to hold events there. When we talk to those people, they go back out into their communities with their families. They've already had these conversations. They're all pretty much in agreement, or for the most part. But when we go into places like Calgary and Edmonton, where 99% of the vote or people are against us, we talk to those people and we start planting seeds. They start having conversations amongst their friends. At first, they're going to be negative conversations against it. But if we can direct the right messaging there, we're going to start planting seeds and having them have conversations on their own. And that's how people slowly shift over time. It's not necessarily the
Right
event,
then and
the
there.
event itself. It's the conversations that are happening in the groups that disagree with us overall.
And these events and these conversations as well that could plant those seeds do have to be marketed very differently than they would be marketed elsewhere. Specifically in cities, you have to really understand the nuances of what makes people within cities even go to these kinds of events or even listen to these kinds of conversations, and having almost like a one of them directed and be able to give the talking points that will plant those seeds. And yeah, I agree, they won't change their minds immediately, but it'll make them think. And believe me, I've been able to change quite a few minds before within Vancouver itself, just by planting the seed and then waiting for the seed to grow almost by itself.
People know the bigger content creators in the space, like the Fringe and stuff like that, but we've been interviewing a lot of content creators, small and big, within independence. And
Thank you to all of them.
And what I found out is there's quite a few libertarian content creators within the space. Libertarian content creators, and they're smaller content creators. We need to lean into them, because libertarians will be able to connect to people with inside Alberta and with inside Edmonton.
Calgary.
With inside of Calgary. So even though they're small, we need to identify who has different ways of thinking with inside the independence movement, so we know who to kind of send into Calgary and Edmonton and stuff like that.
And maybe even find new people. I love Home with Homes, and I think there are two really brilliant young ladies that could be doing a lot of the talking to young people, but identifying more of the young people too.
Well, and not pushing all these content creators to, I noticed some of the libertarian content creators were pushed to the side a little bit by the more hardcore conservative content creators. The conservative content creators are talking to other conservatives, and it seems like we have a lot of that demographic. The libertarians are small channels. Maybe we need to try to build them up, because they're going to be able to talk to an audience that the conservative content creators like me just can't talk to as well.
Well, you're like half and half.
Half and half, I guess. You're
I'm more the
conservative.
hardcore actual conservative of the two. Dollar Robinson says Albertans can contribute 11 billion to CPP annually, but get 5 billion in return. An APP, or Alberta Pension Plan, would keep the 6 billion to increase pensions and reduce the worker contributions. And being able to explain this like this in a short and concise way, maybe in a pamphlet, maybe just as a talking point you have in your head, as something that is a quick answer to somebody that questions what would happen to my CPP, and that is one of the sticking points of uncertainty that they have, is the way forward. And being able to do it not just at the events or at the talks, but one-on-one, just quickly. If somebody asks you, you talk about independence, but what would happen to my CPP? Then quickly, boom, this is what's happening, this is what could happen. You'd be better off.
And also constructing a vision, not promises of things we're guaranteeing, but things that we could possibly be in an independent Alberta that just can't happen as long as we're part of Canada. What am I thinking about here? Maybe a high-speed rail between Edmonton and Calgary. Well, that's not that far-fetched, but we're going to have such good relationships with the U.S. If we have a high-speed rail that goes between Edmonton and Calgary and then goes down to the United States as well and connects to U.S. cities, this is something an independent Alberta could possibly do that a national Canada has never done up to this point. And I don't think they're going to do it as long as they keep their elbows up. So proposing certain kind of infrastructure visions where we could cooperate with the United States, stuff like that, may be beneficial, because if we do build even a railway to the United States, it would help build the economy within Alberta.
And even incentivizing citizens themselves to say, hey, within and at the founding of a nation, you as a citizen could have and could advocate to have more of a voice within the forming of the new nation, which you've never had the opportunity to do. And most people within the countries haven't had the opportunity to do, because our countries are so old.
Well, and with a much smaller nation like Alberta, with so much natural resources, your vote actually matters. Well, within a national Canada, your vote doesn't even matter
especially in Alberta.
Well, anywhere in the West.
Yeah.
So.
The Levine Show, hello, says, thank you for being here. Says, great show. Looking forward to having you on the show Wednesday morning. Exciting. And yes, we will be on the Levine Show on Wednesday morning. Thank you so much to Jason.
I'm super excited because I've been watching Jason Levine for quite a while. I said, he's doing it. He's doing a show with his wife as well. So that's why I started watching it. But man, his show is a little bit different than ours. He goes a lot deeper into the subjects, and he's the exact kind of show I watch even when I'm not watching Alberta independence topics. So I was really excited when he reached out to us. We actually had sent him an email to interview him, and I
think we sent him a DM.
I think he missed it.
And he sent us an email.
I
So
assumed he
hopefully
didn't
we'll
wa-
be able to interview him as well.
Yeah.
James B says, properly investing the money and getting the correct returns and then add to the funds to continue growth. Again, this is about the APP, not constantly being taken from by government thieves.
Well, and
That's
again,
a great talking point too.
once we start throwing events in Calgary and Edmonton and other cities where it's not just all supporters in the room, it's very important that I think we narrow down the topics that we talk about that matter to those people. Because if we, again, talk about all these broad topics, if we bring up certain topics that plant the wrong seed, well, we're going to have somebody vote against us. So knowing who we're talking about, and we don't have to talk about everything at every event.
Todd says, hey guys, just got back from Whistle Stop and John talking to Albertan's vehicle. Oh, and tweaking John's talking to Albertan's vehicle. Good to see y'all. I hope his vehicle is okay.
Yeah.
Todd says, John had it all fixed up, just needed a little bit of tweaking. Oh, okay.
And John's been doing a great job on the ground there. Like, he's starting conversations in a polite dialogue, which we need. He's really the kind of a model of how we convince the other side, or at least plant those seeds.
Exactly. Sean says, who is she blowing the whistle on exactly? Sean is from Oregon, so he's a little bit out of the loop, I guess, on what's been happening between, what was it, Thursday and today?
Yeah.
Blowing the whistle on one of the groups that was going to start campaigning for Alberta independence.
Yeah.
On something that still has not been proven, but that the mainstream media within Canada will take and run with on Monday to counter the fact that on Monday, on May 4th, the petition signatures and all the signature collection will be handed over to Elections Alberta to count. That's what Todd says. The celebration started at the signature collection. Final day for me, guy. LOL. Great idea. FH says or asks, what's the counting in the title of your videos? 170, 171, 172.
Oh.
So we're going down. We're going down all the way to October 19th.
We want
So that's how many days we have left for October 19th.
Yeah, I can't put too many words on there, otherwise it starts cluttering the thumbnail. But the countdown is how many days to October 19th. We usually say it a few times within the show as well. I want everybody that watches the show to know when October 19th is coming, so they can take the day off work, arrange their schedule if they're going into camp, to make sure they have a mail-in ballot if that's possible, or to make sure that their camp supervisors know they have a legal right to go vote that day.
James B says, mainstream media says affordability has never been better too. More BS from them. And that's such an easy one to counter as well.
Yeah.
Just ask people, are you able to afford more things at the grocery store or not? But yes, exactly. And Edward says days to October 19th. Yeah, that's the countdown. Todd says, may the 4th be with us. Yes, then it will be. Tal says, great days to go for the vote on October 19th. Exactly. And hold on. Sean says, revenge of the 6th. Edward says, dogs bite for independence. Sean says, just make voting no will cost you a lot of money and make Alberta more poor. So just tell the truth. And says, Carney will try to play election games as even if it's close, it's a problem. Exactly. Skate from Canada.
Yeah, and I am okay.
Skate from Canada says, hit the like button, people. Yes, thank you so much. Well, you said it's now 7:15 and I'm still going through the comments. Sean says, and you might mention how a close vote for Quebec independence in the 90s gave them more money and power from the Canadian government. That might discourage people who would vote no from voting no. Oh, that's another good point as well.
Yeah.
Todd says, I'm going
Well,
to...
and this is what we're not leaning into, because I'm a fervent Alberta independence supporter. I mean, I want independence for the nation, but I'm realizing as I'm talking to other people that aren't as fervent as me, a lot of people are willing to vote for independence to get a better negotiated deal from Canada. And if we keep pitching it's only for independence, it turns off a very, very large portion of moderates. So keeping the door open to negotiations, even though that's not what I want.
No. And not the principles.
And not the
themselves,
principles that I want.
You get that yes vote.
Well, it's not about just getting the yes vote. But yeah.
But it's a good talking point to get someone to go vote yes.
Well, yeah, also talking about what worked for Quebec, and that's not what I want, but that it becomes a possibility if you vote yes. So
Todd says, I'm going to Nat in the Guy's couch. If we don't win, drink tequila there for a while. Always welcome.
I think a lot of people will be moving to Mexico as well as the United States if this thing doesn't go our way, because Carney, I was done with him years ago. That's why we no longer live in Canada. But a lot of Albertans, this is their last hope.
Sean says, because Guy wants to track down Bigfoot in Oregon and Oregon is a mess, or Guy would be here on the hunt. He'd be there by himself. I'd be watching him from here. Tal says, thank you very much for another stream, you two. Thank you for being here,
Yeah,
Tal,
sorry
as
we
well.
didn't go through news today. I just wanted to really focus on transitioning into
And
campaigning.
that's fine. It's Saturday.
Yeah.
You can be more relaxed.
Well, I got a whole show ready for Monday now because I had about 25 stories ready for today's show.
He doesn't like when his little schedule gets messed with.
Oh, calm
which
down.
I do all the time. I do it intentionally all the time as well. Todd says, you guys are doing just fine at interviews. Thank you. But we can always improve, and we know that. Todd says, I'm a fringer. Our king is the fringe. Yeah, ask Igor, lol. Sean says, just tell people in Calgary a vote for yes means free avocado toast for life. True. That could also be another strategy. Todd says, that is a good one. Yeah. And hold on. Sean says, New Albertan healthcare includes yoga classes. That will get them. And yeah, just finding the ways to get to those specific people as well.
Well, and explaining
And what matters to them too.
explaining what maybe trade with the U.S. actually does. If we have non-tariff trade with the U.S., that's instant grocery prices cheaper. That's instant, a lot of things cheaper. Well, we build our own self-sustaining industries, which hopefully will undercut U.S. prices and eventually build Albertan industries. Having no tariff trade with the U.S. is going to be a big benefit, and it's something that is disappearing in Canada very quick because of this elbows up campaign.
Mm-hmm. Todd says, yeah, don't forget Rachel Nutley. Well, one here once, exactly. And you might want to take this one. Dirt Slayer, you're back. The troll is back. Dirt Slayer 123 says, Canada's GDP grew 9th most in the world in 2025 and Mexico was 15th. How would you take that?
Don't believe all the statistics you see. And I will say this, Mexico is doing very well right now because of the trade negotiations with the USMCA. And especially over the last 6 months, what's been going on with the US and Mexico, because of the economic and military alliances, the U.S. has been investing a lot in Mexico and their manufacturing. There's a lot of overflow manufacturing that the U.S. just doesn't want. They want high-end manufacturing, and a lot of the sub-products that need to be made, they're passing down to Mexico, as well as one of every $4 that's clawed back right now from the trade, the tariff war with China is being invested by the U.S. in Mexico. So
And again, you mentioned 2025 or the statistics being 2025. I will look at the 2026 ones when they come out as well.
Yeah.
Sean says, your GDP tends to grow bigger in chunks when you have higher GDP to start. Also, GDP is a terrible way to define prosperity, leads to reckless immigration, see Canada and the UK, and only focusing on that GDP leads to terrible immigration too.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, explaining that everything isn't based around GDP and we want self-sufficiency within Alberta. We want to be able to have end-to-end manufacturing and developing our own industries, even outside of oil and gas. And the reason we have a big advantage over other markets is because we have all those minerals and all that oil coming out of the ground. So we should have first to use rights for our businesses within Alberta.
Jesse GP says, and remember, government workers also have the possibility to get a 25% pay raise also with no federal income tax. That too. Todd says, way to go on the First Nations front then, Guy. Yes, way to go, man.
Yeah, I've been impressed with I made a direct call out to First Nations when they were using the elites of the tribe to come after Alberta independence. And I didn't know if I was out of place or speaking out of turn or I was just yelling into the dark. But the First Nations really stepped up. And there were a few other content creators that made direct pleas saying, if you're supporting Alberta independence, please let us know, put a video out there or something. And they did.
And Sean says, so yeah, unfettered or unregulated immigration will lead to higher GDP, but does it lead to prosperity? It does the opposite. And we're seeing that literally within Canada as infrastructure has been completely almost abandoned as they just bring in more and more people with no spaces to put them and the real estate markets being in the trash. And everything else being in the trash too. Healthcare. Look at the healthcare system. You can't tell me, even if you're like a forever Canadian person, that the healthcare system within Canada works.
Well, and also not bringing in mass immigration is going to make wages go up. And if we can get wages to a level where one income can supply a family, we can really look at turning around birth rates, really having strong family units, intergenerational family units. So we're not putting our mothers and fathers in old folks' homes, but having to help raise our kids.
But for someone like Dirt Slayer, I don't think that talking point would work because
I'm
he's very.
I'm not talking to him.
But he's very focused on the numbers.
Yeah,
and that's another kind of person we have to be able to reach and to be able to explain properly how GDP is not the number one thing you should be looking at. Todd
I think that GDP of Alberta right now is being held down dramatically. If Alberta gets its independence, it's going to be deregulated, and oil as well as natural resources and mining, those two industries alone are going to explode the GDP of Alberta. Right now, you're being hamstringed by your own freaking government. You're being landlocked by your own government as well.
Mm-hmm. Todd says, textbook and communications class, clear and concise. Exactly. Justin GP says, guy wants a taco, lol. Yeah, that's what he wants to lead. Dirt Slayer says, GDP per capita in Canada is way, way ahead of Mexico, 20th versus 70.
Okay.
Keep looking at those numbers and tell me in 5 years how you're doing.
We'll see the direction of the two countries which they go. If Alberta gets its independence, I'm confident it's going to do 100 times better than Mexico.
It'll be a mirror up to
It's
both
going to be
Mexico and
100 times better than Mexico, Alberta. But Canada, Mexico has a ton of growth potential right now, and it's headed in the right direction, at least with its alignment with the U.S.
Mm-hmm. Todd said that's probably why he was okay with living in Mexico, the tacos. Is that why you were okay with living here?
No, it's because my lovely wife here.
Chocolate says, also those massive income gains can fund the social services so many demand, health, education, etc., and fund them even better within a structure that actually works, because you can reimagine given the failures that you already have seen within Canada. You already have the example of what doesn't work. Now you can plan on something that does work.
Yeah, and I haven't been confident to speak on Medicare and a lot of other things because I don't know the vision the leadership has or what Alberta has right now. So if we can disseminate the messaging of what we want for healthcare going forward so we can actually pitch that, it would give me a lot more confidence talking about it as well.
Sean says, if you don't, it's like you don't listen, Dirt Slayer. You increase the population by 2 to 5% annually. The fact that Canada isn't number one in GDP is the bigger story. Very good point there too, Sean.
Well, let's explain something here. If Canada is having any GDP growth, it's because of Alberta itself. And you're hamstringing Alberta. It could be growing a lot faster. Alberta is the one holding up all of Canada at this point, and Albertans are tired of it overall.
Mm-hmm. Todd says, love how you're a hybrid guy. Sean says, metric system is for the Laurentian elite rulers. The imperial measurements are the people's measurements. They're the imperial measurements. Where do you think they come from? From the crown, Sean.
Let me get a little bit of a coffee here.
Todd says, Dirt Slayer might be someone looking Albertan or something, but actually, or something, but actually a robot. True. But I'll continue to reply for now. If it gets too annoying, then you know the consequence. Dirt Slayer says, instead of saying CPP is not performing, why not do a Google search and verify what you are saying? Why don't you do a Google search and verify what the CPP Investments arm has been doing, the CPP Investments Corporation, how bad they have been failing, and how much their president is being paid right now, and compare that to how much it has actually been able to grow within their little asset.
I had to come back.
Managed asset plan that they have.
Canada is doing so well. Why is Mark Carney investing in the CCP in India and every other country? CPP in India and China and every other country overseas. If Canada's GDP is doing so well, why isn't Mark Carney investing the CPP fund in Canada itself? This is what Alberta is going to do when it gets its independence. It's going to bet on itself because it believes in itself. Obviously, Mark Carney doesn't. His elbows are so high up, he doesn't know the wind from his ass.
His whole company is in the U.S., even though he says he hates the U.S. That should tell you enough. Justin DP says, Rise of Alberta has pamphlets that are available for free. And that's great. And that's true. Again, thank you for reminding me as well. But maybe we need other pamphlets as well that explain certain specific things to a certain specific crowd too, that can be disseminated. But yes, I mean, it's good to know that they're already there as well. Tal says, Dirt, that GDP comparison is a false equivalency. Yeah, but you can negotiate with stupid. Sean says, Dirt Slayer, didn't I just explain it to you? You're the one who brings up China. By the way, no, but I'm reading the responses to it. By the way, how is Beijing, comrade? Todd says, good to see so many in the chat today. Love it. Yes, so are we. Todd says, Patsy's hungry, big day, and muddy dirty. Todd says, guy looks like a rapper when he gets going on a rap video. That is true. I had never noticed that, but it's true. I'll play back the points where he gets really going. DeBilver says, DeBover says, go to Edmonton to Lethbridge high-speed train. Tal says, not having passenger rail services Edmonton, Red Deer, Calgary is disgraceful. When we had that service, I used it often. Downtown to downtown was awesome. And again, you can also continue to bring that up. Todd says, a large pocket of people south of the 49th parallel, south of Montana's northern border, dictate all of Canada. Weird. Stop it, please. No, thanks. Harmony says, know your audience. Yeah. Sean says, she struck me as someone very interested in herself, the whistleblower. Oh, yeah. Exactly. She was very happy. She was getting a lot of media presence now. Faye 19 says, Alberta independence, let's go. Yes. And let's have that as the main... as our main goal.
I actually watch the whistleblower all the time so I can debate with the TV and I know the other side's talking points. I was shocked she was the whistleblower.
I was not. You were shocked?
Yeah, that show is absolutely cringe. I have a tough time watching it, but I do like to know what the other side is thinking. I will say this. We need to really go after young people, whether it's the University of Lethbridge, even if they don't agree with us, even if they're dramatically different. Young people have the most malleable minds. I used to work in a bar as security. I used to talk a lot of politics at the bar and talk to a lot of different people. Older people, the older somebody gets, the more set and in their way of thinking they become, and it's much harder to change them. Young people, I noticed, even people that had opposite opinions of me, after talking to them a few times, I very often change their opinion. Young people are very much the easiest demographic to change their mind. It's surprising.
Escape from Canada says, great conversation today. Thank you. Yes, and I do like doing this, just talking to the comments, but he likes those little structured shows. Tal Talk says, freedom for Alberta. Yes, soon enough. Todd says, 170 days. Todd says, Ben Trudeau came into the whistle stop today in a helicopter. Lol, killer entry. Love him, he says. Dirt Slayer says, forever Canadian here. And I mean, no shit, Sherlock, of course you are. But stay in Canada and let us know how it goes in 10 years. If you're still elbows up forever Canada. Or if you decided to go live somewhere else because you just can't live in Canada anymore.
Let's also think about the demographics of Calgary and Edmonton. Yes, I know there's a huge immigration population there, so hitting up that population or talking to that demographic is important. But most people that live move from other provinces usually move into Edmonton or Calgary. So having people within Alberta independence that can talk to people that are from BC because they moved from BC or used to be from Quebec. I know we have one really big guy from Quebec, and he can talk to Quebecers. So, yeah.
Sean says, guy, relax. He needed coffee.
I have a tough time doing it.
Todd says, 4 helicopters, count them 4, landed at the whistle stop today, by the way. Cool. And Tal Talks his ex, because Justin GP asked, is at Tal Park. Thank you for that. And go follow him or her. Him, I'm guessing. Todd says, I said no to that guy, don't worry. Dirt Slayer. Todd says, Alberta's GDP is going to go through the roof to the moon. And it'll be a great example and a great mirror to put up to the Forever Canada people as they continue to have their elbows up. Dirt Slayer says, healthcare is a provincial responsibility. Yes, but the system itself is a federal one. That doesn't work. James Hunt says, and you can't tell me in any province that the healthcare system works within Canada. So James Hunt says, high-speed rail, that's a great idea. Wonder how well it works when winter hits and snow drifts get 3 to 4 inches high, because we got winter for about 4 to 6 months a year.
Yeah, underground high-speed rail is an option as well. So
TS00 says, NDP and AHS founded by Tommy Douglas. Douglas wrote his thesis on unaliving people on purpose, because I can't say that word on YouTube. James B says, when Alberta leaves, the snowball effect will be amazing. Every job imaginable will skyrocket.
Yeah, and there's going to be a massive industries created as sub-manufacturing industries. It's going to be interesting what happens once we get our independence. A lot of those industries that are clearing out of Canada are going to start popping up in Alberta. There's going to be a ton of investment coming in there because Albertans and the future independent Alberta is really going to lean heavy into capitalism, and capitalism still works. I mean, a lot of people want to say it doesn't work, but if you just look at the Nordic countries over in Europe, they're funding their entire socialist vision of what they
Programs.
want, programs of what they want through capitalism.
Yeah, because they realize that the other way doesn't work.
Yeah.
You eventually run out of other people's money.
I don't agree with the socialist side, but they worked it out so the capitalist side funds it, I guess.
Sean says, so Canada has lower GDP growth than the USA, despite the USA having decreasing population and Canada having an increasing population. So it doesn't work. Exactly. Todd says it's under 2%, guy. GDP has been for a long time. GDP growth within Canada itself, yes.
Well, the Bank of Canada is coming out with statements, it seems like on a monthly basis, how we're headed for recession and how things are going bad. The Bank of Canada is extremely conservative, and they usually don't like to predict doom and things like that. And over the last year, it's just been negative statement after negative statement.
Todd says GDP growth in Canada for the last 10 years or so, under 2%. Sean says all his kids are in the USA, and so is his absurd Mike Myers. My goodness.
All of his money's there
All
as
his
well.
money's there too. And all his investments are elsewhere, not within Canada.
All of his investments are there. All of Canada's investments that he's investing, whether it's the CPP or other things, are invested in other countries. Why don't you believe in Canada's future? Because you know it has no future under your leadership. Albertans believe in Albertan and in Alberta, and I hope we invest in Alberta, Alberta mining, Alberta oil, and all the rest of it.
Albertan citizens. Todd says you need to have a beer, guy. Well, you need
I
a coffee.
don't drink anymore.
No.
I haven't drank in about 8 years. You
Yeah,
in about 10.
I've been sober for 10 years. You up for about 8. And he needed a coffee. That's all. TS00 says, when a bank robber, say Carney, says hands up, having your hands up means your elbows are up too. Exactly. And that's why he told everybody to go elbows up.
That's a good slogan.
Todd says you could clip it net and sub in audio for your rapping session. Todd says Alberta independence, let's go, y'all. Yes, and let's go May the 4th as well. Todd Talk says, I have to agree, I've heard some incredibly dumb stuff on the line. And I've just passively watched it as he yells at the TV, and even I can notice how much of a ridiculous show it is.
Well, I thought I was the only one watching that thing because it's not that big of a channel. I mean, yeah, it's bigger than us, but God, I watch it to know the liberal talking points, especially because she's from Alberta, and they talk. I think it's the one liberal channel that talks about Alberta independence more than other ones from a negative perspective or a wanting to stay within national Canada. So it is a good show to watch to get the other side's talking points so I know.
Dale Robinson says, worst food prices in the G7, highest household debt in the G7, most unaffordable housing in the G7, lowest investment in the G7, lowest productivity within the G7, highest unemployment in the G7. This is Carney's Canada. This has been the Liberals' Canada for a while now.
Highest salaries for refugees in the G7 as well, $87,000 a year.
Yeah. And I'll read some RUMBLE ones because I've been kind of ignoring them. I'm so sorry. KPU says, does the cartel in Mexico do anything good for community or for the people? Kind of like El Chapo, sort of, but they've kind of stopped as well.
Well, and I will say there are two good benefits to the cartel, and I kind of bring this up, even though I don't like cartels.
It's a bit ironic.
It's a bit ironic.
Take it with a grain of salt, what he's going to say.
You don't get digital ID and you don't get digital currency when cartels sharing power with the government because they want to make sure they can hide their identity and hide their money. So even if a digital ID is brought in, it's not going to work functionally, and the cartel is going to make sure of that.
But Mexico also doesn't have the infrastructure to properly even try to implement stuff like that. Even though they say they want to, they can't because they don't have the mechanisms or the technology or the willingness to do it.
You got a crazy leftist government here as well, but you get freedom through chaos, kind of. It's the opposite of Canada because people in Canada just comply. They have the highest compliance rate with the jibby jab era of any country.
True. Or one of them, but yeah. KP4U says, we trade with the Americans too much to be totally metric. I use a bit of both. I'm 100% metric. I'm all for the metric system because it's the only one I understand. Krista says, hello, dears. Alberta Independence. Hello, Krista. Thank you for being here. Says, good evening, everyone from Southwest Calgary. Finally at home. Long day at work. Still working, Krista. Wow. Work really hard. Chris Lilly says they could read Value of Freedom on Alberta Prosperity Project website. That too. But I think there could be a good way to make it a little bit more concise, maybe, just for quick talking points as the questions come up.
We have the long form version. We need the short form version put into shorts, put into short videos, put into short pamphlets where it addresses one subject at a time, and it's easy for somebody to read. Where the right things are put in bold writing, the other things are put in smaller writing, so we can distribute it. The one individual that said the ability to print out small pamphlets ourselves and then distribute them is a good idea.
Hold on. Yes, Christo says, great hearing you two are spreading the show with other content creators. I foresee an interesting future for you. Cheering for you. Thank you so much, Christo.
Thank you. And everybody's been great in Alberta, and we have the most lovely audience in the world. I feel connected because we're all fighting for something that we really all believe in.
Okay, Christo says, looking forward to packing heat in an independent Alberta. And Christo says, as I mentioned before, I love your show format and the close interaction with your audience. In short time, I got to consider you and everyone here and YouTube family.
Thank you.
So
and
much.
we went away from our normal format today, but
Yes.
we'll be back on Monday with the
This is
same.
what I like doing.
This is what
My Spanish show is basically this.
we have a Spanish channel with about 11,000 subscribers. That's just Nat now. She does a
Live show.
She does a format without any chapter markers or any real news. She'll bring up maybe one story here or there and just talk.
Yeah, because that's what I like to do. I am Mexican after all. Todd says, my son has signed. I'm voting yes. 22, my little big freedom fighter. How about 6 foot tall, long arms, strapping lad? Good. And good that he understands the importance of that for his future as well, and that for that of generations to come, I would say. Todd says, young fighting Irish Declan. Sean says, healthcare works in Yukon. Well, of course. Todd says, Canada Health Act screws that all up. Check it out, dude. To Dirt Slayer.
Yeah.
Hold on. Troglodyte says,
Well, and I know I was getting mad at Dirt Slayer, and that's why I'm not necessarily the right person to talk in a Calgary or Edmonton. And a lot of we have to know who our content creators and who our speakers are.
who
because
could be the most effective? And as, for example, as an Acceptable Fringe said, it's not about egos. It's about who's most effective with what crowd, with what messaging as well.
And we're gonna get if you send the wrong person in with 99 hostile people into a room, you're gonna start going back and forth, and it's gonna get heated. It's gonna get clipped. It's not a good idea. You need somebody like Keith Wilson, or has that level-headed mentality that can just answer questions and things like this into Calgary and Alberta. It's gonna take a special type, and we need to identify who those people are. There are some within the movement right now that came from Calgary and Edmonton. So.
Troglodyte says Carney is conducting a corporate raid on Canada.
Yeah, and Alberta's trying to stop it by voting for independence.
Yeah. Charlie Dufault says, if Albertans weren't being slaves to Ottawa in wasted tax, we could afford to raise our own children and grow our own Canadian culture and values. No need for immigration if we took care of our folks.
And this is what I said, and this is what I brought up, and for some reason it's controversial. I don't see it controversial at all. The reason we have immigration and the ultimate goal of immigration is so we can have no immigration, so we can plug the holes. We figure out how to train our own citizens, how we can get our birth rate up. So eventually one day we don't need immigration, or the kinds of immigration that we do allow in is immigration through marriage, which is highly successful because you have somebody with that immigrant 24 hours a day that's their spouse, kind of teaching them the culture and integrating them into society. But ultimately, immigration should be used to plug holes so we can get to a stage where we don't need immigrants at all. The opposite kind of happens. They say we're bringing immigration to plug holes, but then they intentionally make those holes bigger so we can bring more immigrants in.
And to increase the GDP without actually making it a measurable benefit for the citizens themselves.
Yeah.
Sean says Carney is doing what Putin did to Russia in the 90s. Todd says, just ask Sam Cooper guy. And Sean says, Nat can teach you the freedom measurements. No, I don't want to learn them because they're too difficult and I'm bad at math. Tal says, Jez, you have to follow me for me to reply. Because I'm guessing people are trying to follow Tal. Go follow Tal. Todd says, give Nat her Saturdays guy. And Sean says,
well, and I will address a different issue. I'm not going to say what was said in the email. We've got a few emails from a few different people, and I asked you to respond to it, but you didn't. And I said we all need to stick together. We don't need to start dividing up, whether it's content creators or people within the movement. We need to stick together. Some people were pointing out to us people that they disagreed with in the movement, why they disagreed, and I'm saying we need to stick together now more than ever. We need to have a clear vision, and that clear vision is Alberta independence.
Yes.
So.
And that's the main goal, Alberta independence and more yes votes as well.
Well, and I think that's starting to happen. We're not just us that wanted to have this conversation. Just at the same time, the Fringe is organizing something on the other end, on the ground.
Charlie Defoe says, we're not producing children because of the cost of living, housing. Hence, Ottawa opens the door to immigrants, and yet our taxes pave the way to improve their lives, not ours. That, and also a lot of ideology baked in as well, a lot of different planning that went on all the way back in the 70s, but that has led to where we are right now, not just within Canada or even Alberta, but the world as well.
Well, we can have all the families we want, but if we're forcing both parents to go to work and not raise their kid and handing our kids over to the government and them indoctrinating it, why does it matter if we get our birth rate up? We need to make sure we can build a strong society with a strong family so we're raising our kids and parental rights are respected again rather than being taken away.
And hold on. And thank you so much to Jess and GP for the $5 Rumble rant
thank
saying,
you.
hiya everyone on the Rumble side, buy some tacos. Thank you so much. I will. We will. And thank you so much again. Hold on. Sean says, Guy, where's some Lululemon? We can get that Calgary vote.
Oh, God.
We can send you out in leggings and a wig.
We'll find somebody in the movement that can do it. It's not going to be me.
No. Adele Robinson says, fellow peeps, hit the like button. Let's get to 100. Thank you so much. And yes, again, if you did like the stream, it really does help us out when you hit that like button. Todd says, too much coffee, not enough beer, Guy. Lol, joking. I get it, man. Respect your discipline. Sean says,
My discipline is right here. She's the one that made me sober up originally. It was the best decision I've ever made. And thank you to Nat.
Sean says, and my own decisions made me sober up, but it was also the best decision I have ever made. Sean says, I lived in Russia, by the way. Carney is pulling everything towards his buddies.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if more elbows up, people don't see that, and I end up feeling a little bit of pity for them.
But this is the issue here. Like, well, our polling numbers are down, but we can turn this thing around, and we just have some work to do. Alberta has a critical mass of individuals that live there that will vote for independence more than any other province within Canada. If Alberta can't do it, nobody's going to do it. Alberta is really the hope for all of Canada to gain independence. And if Alberta does do it, and it shows that it is possible and it can be done, you're going to see a critical mass of people within Saskatchewan actually believe again and say, we can stand up. We don't have to be slaves to Ottawa and Quebec anymore. So there's a lot riding on Alberta independence, even outside of Alberta.
Todd Schroeder says, Autobots unite, Guy, then roll out. Sean says, just like Putin and Yeltsin to oligarchs. Oh, yeah, that was a continuation of his other message. James Hunt says, lol, Nat, I guess inch, not foot, not a centimeter, minor mistake.
Okay, let's wrap it up here.
Hold on. Thank you so much to Christo as well for the $5 Rumble rant saying,
thank you.
You crazy, Jess, buy a nice piece of beef and learn how to cook it. I'm not that bad at cooking beef, am I?
Well, here in Mexico, I have a lot of stomach issues because I used to work a lot of camp jobs, whether it was oil or mining, and I was getting sick with like pneumonia and other things, and they kept giving me antibiotics, gave me a weak stomach after time, and now I get food poisoning really easy. Yes. So in Mexico, when I eat meat, and I like to eat a lot of meat, I have to burn it to a crisp here to make sure I don't get food poisoning. So yes. I like all my meat Cajun now. Although when I lived in Canada, I liked everything extremely rare.
Brian Daly says they're not going to let their cash cow go easily. No, but we also know that there are where the attacks and what the attack vectors will probably be, and we can start planning for that as well.
Yeah, how much of a cash cow is it when you don't even let them access the natural resources when they're offering to give you remittance payments? It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Todd says, finally a super, lol, everyone broke. And that's fine. But we appreciate it a lot, but we also like to read everybody's comments.
And I appreciate everybody being here today.
Yes. TS says, indoctrination begins in grade school. Much work required to publicly audit multiple faculty premises and logical facilities built into Alberta indoctrination centers.
Yeah, and the education system needs to change in Alberta once we get our independence.
Mm-hmm. Todd says, get some rest, guys. Please take care. Talk later. Thank you, Todd, for being here, and have a good night. Sean says, Guy, tell us how you drink water. Oh, in Mexico? We have a filter.
Yeah.
You can't drink water out of the tap here in Mexico.
There's a really expensive filter you can buy for underneath the sink, or a lot of people buy bottled water as well.
Yeah, I think you can either get bottled water delivered to your house, which is what a lot of people do. Others just go and buy it out themselves. Or you can get a filter. It's not super expensive, but that's kind of like a more permanent solution.
Yeah.
But during my whole childhood, we would always get just water delivery because the filters weren't really up to, we didn't have the filter option. So I got used to carrying the big giant gallon. Is it a gallon? No, it's more.
Okay.
It's a big giant water bottle and putting it on a thing that swivels, and that's how you would drink water. And that's it now.
Okay.
We made it through.
We made it
I
through.
forced him to stay. So you're welcome, everybody.
And next week, we're going to be on a pretty tight timeline when we do our shows. We literally have interviews scheduled before and after every single show next week. And we also have 1 or 2 guest appearances as well. We're going to be on the Jason Levine show on Wednesday. I think at around 7:30 or something. It's really early. So we do apologize if we can't get to all the comments next week. We're going to do the best that we can, though.
Exactly. And again, tomorrow we do have that interview with Maxime Bernier premiering. I will be in the chat to talk with y'all if you want to be there. And if not, watch it later. But it is an interesting conversation.
Yeah, and again, if you don't
we're
like...
really thankful to him for talking to us.
And again, if you don't like Maxime Bernier, it's fine, but he is telling his voters he supports Alberta independence, and in return, they're going to vote however many thousands of PPC voters there are in Alberta. They're going to vote for independence because of his endorsement of it. So let's not be too hard. It's not to say we need to bring him in, endorse him, or anything like that. What it is saying is he's really helping out Alberta independence by having his voters vote for independence.
Yes, Sean says, doesn't burn it, water. Justin GP says he filters it through trapped Bigfoot hair. That's disgusting to think about. DeBilver says, thanks. And Sean says, good night, guys. Good night, Sean. Hold on. We have one more.
Oh, okay.
Kurt Ali on Are You and Billy says, I was literally just trying to figure out how to reply to comments.
Adios.
Have a good night. Have a good rest of your weekend. And again, tomorrow the interview is premiering. Thank you so much to everybody that talked to us because I think it was really important as well. Goodbye. Oh no, hold on.